And welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I am Tim Capper. You can follow me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also follow me on X over at Cliffy D. And this episode of the Alouettes Flightdeck podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where right now, if you go and use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off your entire order. Head on over to www.sportbuffshop.com. Make sure, if you haven't already, to get all of your merchandise, your Grey Cup merchandise, your NFL, NHL, whatever sport you're into, you'll find the merchandise there. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to support local.
Have you missed any of the episodes of our 8th season or any of the other seasons? Well, don't worry. You can head over to our archive and find the entire playlist there. Head over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. You can follow us over on X at Alouettes FLDeck. Facebook, you can find us at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod. Instagram and Threads, you can find us at Alouettes Flight Deck. And YouTube, where you can find some of the audio versions. You can find some of the video interviews that we've been doing, and also the entire archive of this year's Flight Deck Live. Head over to youtube.com/Alouettes Flight Deck. And lastly, if you want to rep the podcast during the off season or at any time, you can head over to our merch store at flightdeckgear.ca. And again, check out any of our new merchandise, from our We the One shirt to any of the other ones, including our very, very popular Cartoon Bird 56 shirt. Again, we appreciate everybody who's bought something over this past year and ever since we've had the store. And we hope to bring you some new stuff in 2024. So, Cliffy, my friend.
Capper.
Yeah, it has been a very, very interesting season, obviously. And we want to let everybody know that this is, unfortunately, I guess we could say, the season finale for our 2023 broadcast season. But, no, don't fret, everybody. We will be back. But there's just so much to talk about. Obviously, this being our season finale, we do have our annual State of the Team interview with the Alouettes president, and we will be speaking with Owls president and CEO Mark Weightman here in a couple of minutes. But, we felt that it should, considering what we've gone through this season and what we're leading up to in 2024, we have to make sure that we give the love, considering it's a completely different offseason already. But we have to give love to these guys that the Alouettes have decided to bring back to play for us in 2024, and most of them beyond, right?
Oh, absolutely. And yes, it's a little bit bittersweet this evening, knowing that this is going to be the last episode of the Flight Deck for 2023. And yeah, we'll be back. We're gonna take a little time. We're gonna enjoy the holiday season. We're gonna relax. We're gonna look back at the year that was, and even doing so now, I look back at this season, and it's like, holy crap! Like what a season! We will not be forgetting about this season anytime soon. I mean, there's just so much to talk about. Even when I was thinking about doing the recap and everything, and thinking about everything else that this team has gone through and what we've gone through in doing this show. And yeah, I guess really, truly, the only thing you say is, holy crap. So we definitely appreciate each and every one of you that's tuned in, downloaded, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on any of our podcatchers. We appreciate each and every one of you. So you know what? We're going to go out with a bang. We're going to do this thing, and I'm excited. Let's get into it, Tim. You sort of prefaced it.
Yeah, I did. And again, unlike, with all the uncertainty that the Alouettes had last year, and we had quite a few free agencies that were available, and they were big name free agents. But, we had the list come out this year. We were speculating on what could happen. We were spot on when it came to Cody Fajardo and him getting his extension. And if you happen to miss my throwback, by the way, I never asked you about that. How'd you like that throwback from last week? I love that. Turn back the clock. in that episode. So, but they just continued. The team continued, didn't they? So, Danny Mack's been very, very busy in getting these players and signing them for multiple years. Where should we start here, dude? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've already had 3 major ones announced. It just kept on going this week.
Oh, definitely. And that's saying, yeah, Cody Fajardo, that was sort of the first domino to fall, if you will. Although, as excited as it is to know that he's going to be returning in 2024 and 2025, we've got a couple of free agents that we're kind of looking at and saying, okay, well, the Alouettes would be wise to get this guy signed. But news is news, right? And we're interested and excited to find out who's going to be next. The next ones to come were Sean Lemon and Darnell Sankey, also extending themselves. Lemon just for 1 year, Sankey for 2 years. Once again, fantastic stuff. And again, when we spoke to them at the casino a couple days after the Grey Cup win, they basically said, "We're coming back. We got to get the numbers right." And I had a feeling that's all it was going to be, was just getting the numbers right. And clearly they did, which is absolutely tremendous. But yeah, like they say in those infomercials, but wait, there's more. We've got even more signings to discuss. And again, credit to Danny Machocha and the Alouettes organization for recognizing how important it is to get a lot of these guys under contract. You want to run it back, bring the band back together, however you want to phrase it. This is the way. The next name on the list, Mustafa Johnson, which, folks, you saw what he did the latter part of this season. I mean, this guy is a beast, an absolute beast.
With or without a shirt.
You know what's funny? I do not think he has worn a shirt since Grey Cup Sunday. Technically jersey, but okay. We saw him after the Grey Cup, shirtless, celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
He got off the. I saw him at the after party. Okay, there he was rocking a wife beater, but after that, getting off the plane with the Grey Cup, no shirts. At the Grey Cup parade, no like I'm sitting there going, did he go all Hulk Hogan and just tear his shirts in excitement with the Grey Cup win, and he just doesn't have any left, and that's why he had to sign an extension, was just to go to the store and buy some goddamn shirts? Or maybe he's just decided, the hell with it, I'm not wearing shirts anymore, and who's going to stop him, right? You know what, dude? I mean, listen, if I had his body, I'd probably go shirtless myself too, because dude's in shape. Dude can rock it. So, very excited to see Mustafa back. He is going to be an impact player on this defensive line for years to come, along with Lawal Ugalak, Sean Lemon leading the way, Brock Gowanlock. I mean, these are the studs that you're building this defensive line around, and are going to be a major player for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely great to get Mustafa back in, back signed, sealed, and delivered. Absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Next would be Jamar McGloster on the offensive line. Did a very outstanding job. A great contributor. Very crucial in keeping Cody Fajardo upright. Definitely a young man that has shown that he can play this game at a very high level, and I think is going to be one of those key elements for this defensive line, especially when you look at a couple of the guys on the O-line are a little long in the tooth, in which case you got to have the young guys ready to step up and make an impact. And Jamar is definitely one of those guys who will definitely do that.
Yep.
Next, Deontay Ruffin was a free agent signing from Calgary, and definitely did an outstanding job. I think where you saw a lot of Deontay's work was in mentoring a lot of the young guys, like the Reggie Stubblefields and the Kebion Entos, providing that championship experience, learning from the best out in Calgary, bringing that here to Montreal. And he was able to impart that wisdom onto these youngsters and been a solid contributor throughout the season. There's been a couple of times where, like, some of the plays he's made have just been outstanding. Like, this guy's not afraid to throw his weight around and make things happen. So I'm definitely glad to see him back in the lineup for 2024. And as was announced today, I mean, you got Cody under wraps for the next season and beyond. Why not the second part of that? Like, you got the MVP of the Grey Cup signed, sealed, and delivered. Why not also the most valuable Canadian signed, sealed, and delivered? Yes, folks, that's right. Tyson Philpott, who caught the Grey Cup winning touchdown that we spoke into existence. Let's not forget that during Grey Cup media, the media day. I spoke with Tyson for the show, and we had talked about that about him starting a new touchdown streak with Cody, or maybe even catching the Grey Cup winning touchdown. We spoke that into existence. So, folks, if you haven't checked it out, make sure you head over to our YouTube page and check that out, because we talked about this. We talked about the possibility of it happening, and lo and behold, Tyson Philpott did catch the Grey Cup and game-winning touchdown, and he's coming back in 2024 and 2025. And if that doesn't get you excited, folks, well, hell, I don't know what will, because
yeah,
this kid is just absolutely outstanding. I mean, this is his second year in the league, and he's already a Grey Cup champion. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, and we're just beyond thrilled. Friend of the show too, so we're even more thrilled to be able to have Tyson come back as a member of this Alouettes organization. And we'll be having him back on the show as well. We got to get caught up with him again and get his thoughts on everything. I mean, we got a lot. And you know what, folks? I'm sure by the time this episode hits the airwaves or hits the internet, or however you say it nowadays, don't be surprised. Yeah, don't be surprised if there's even more signings happening, because it really does feel like they want to bring back this core, the core nucleus that won this Grey Cup. They're going to want to bring him back as much as they can. And as much as they'd love to bring everybody back, and it sounds like everybody wants to come back, is that truly feasible? Only time's going to tell. I mean, I will say this: Danny Machocha has done a hell of a job so far in bringing and locking up some of these key pieces, but he's still got his work cut out for him. So.
Yeah, he does. And by the way, I think the signing of the extension of Philpott wasn't a, as we were saying earlier a couple of weeks ago, that the Cody thing really wasn't a surprise. It's something that needed to be done. Did you find the extension of Tyson to be a surprise? Because it really was not on my radar. I understand why it was done, but it really wasn't on my radar.
Wasn't on mine either, because it was important. I mean, he was a pending free agent, but it almost felt like, okay, this is going to happen. It's just, it was almost a formality at this point, as far as I was concerned. So great to get it out of the way. I mean, I'm sure it's, a weight off Tyson's mind as well, because at least now he doesn't have to worry about the whole, back and forth negotiations, all that jazz. It's just a matter of like, listen, I want to be here. He's even said in multiple interviews that he does want to be here. He wants to be a Montreal Alouette. He wants to spend his entire career in Montreal. He's put his money where his mouth is, and so have the Alouettes in that sense. They believe in him as well. So, I mean, at this point, you may as well just put pen to paper, be done with it. And folks, if you bought a Tyson Philpott jersey, know that your investment is safe for at least another couple of years.
Whew, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
You do have a Tyson Philpott jersey, so money well spent, my friend.
Yes, there you go. As Cliff said, there are going to be a lot of announcements, and we're kind of stuck within the new. I guess it's what did they say? It's we're going to be affected by the news cycle itself, because there's a hint that the schedule is going to be released, but do not fret. We do have some off-season plans to go over our schedule and stuff like that. So don't. But again, we've been lucky all year. We've been lucky all year when it comes to the news cycle, Cliff. So, I mean, it happens, right? So,
well, I mean, like every other podcast, it feels like, I mean, we've been burned in the past too. We put out an episode and boom, some major news happens, and we're just like, damn, like, you couldn't have done this yesterday, but that's, you live and die. You live and die by the podcast, folks. I mean, what else can I say?
Exactly. So as we mentioned, we do have This is a yearly tradition I'm absolutely enjoying. We're able to bring on the Alouettes president, talk about the year that was, and maybe to get a little bit of teasers on what's going to happen going forward for the next season. And we were able to continue just that. We're going to be speaking with Mark Weightman, who is the Alouettes president and CEO. And within the conversation, as I said, find get a little bit of tidbits. And because we really hadn't spoke to him since he came back, we wanted to find out a little bit of the behind the scenes of how he became the Alouettes president during that tumultuous offseason that we had here in 2023. So without further ado, Cliff, let's speak with Alouettes president and CEO, Mark Weightman. And what we love having is our yearly state of the team update from the Alouettes CEO and president. We're happy to welcome back in a shorter amount of time this time. As you know, it's Mark Weightman from the Alouettes. Mark, it's hard to believe you and I just talked. What was it? October last year, before you even rejoined the Alouettes, talk about the 25th anniversary of the U2 game. Who would have thought such a short period of time, and a lot of stuff has happened to you in that short amount of time, eh?
I sometimes wonder if maybe you knew something was up and you just were holding on to me and didn't tell me because, it is kind of ironic that the way that worked out. But so happy to get a chance to talk to you again, and this time in a more formal capacity and with some more recent news to tell.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect, Mark, do you think if we knew what was going to happen, we would have kept you in the dark?
I'm not sure what the right answer to that is. But I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. I'm going to.
That's fair.
One thing we wanted to find out if possible, because this is something I've been wanting to ask you since you've come back to the team, is obviously we know you were, around Quebec, most recently with the Trois-Rivières Lions of the ECHL. How did it come about that you were offered the job of the president and CEO of the Alouettes, then, asking you to return to the franchise?
I think over the years, I've developed some really, really close working relationships with several of the different, pillars of the Québécois group, and part of that was actually in Trois-Rivières as well. Working a lot with Videotron. It was, we ended up selling the naming rights to Videotron, like Colisée Videotron, as you know. They're also the title sponsor for the team. So got to know the sponsorship folks and the brand folks at Videotron really well over the years and worked very well with them. I've known Martin Tremblay from QSD for many years. And had a good relationship with him and Louis-Philippe Neveu, who's GM of TVA Sport, who, among other things, I negotiated a broadcast agreement with him to broadcast Lions games in the last 2-3 years. So I think, and had a chance to meet Mr. Pelodeau, throughout when we did the grand opening of the Colisée in Trois-Rivières, among other times. And so I think I spent a lot of time with a lot of the key and most influential people in the Québécois universe, and built a really good rapport with them. And so I think when all this came around, that led to them reaching out to me.
So just to clarify, there's a Colisée Videotron in Quebec City and also in Trois-Rivières?
The Centre Videotron is in Quebec City.
Oh,
and the new Colisée Videotron was in Trois-Rivières. That's right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I stand corrected.
No, because I think Colisée where you're coming from, because I think it used to be called the Colisée before Videotron took over the naming rights in Quebec City.
In Quebec City, yeah, the old building was the Colisée Pepsi.
Yeah.
And so when they opened up the new building, they called it Le Centre Videotron. So yeah, no, you're not the first to have to be confused over the names. Trust me. One's a little bit bigger in Quebec City, and then there's about 5,000 seats in the Colisée Videotron and Trois-Rivières.
This time, was it easy to make the decision to come back? Because obviously, with the new ownership, that was in place at the time. I mean, you hadn't been with the team for quite a few years. You've been doing other stuff, when it comes, hockey and basketball, et cetera, et cetera. But was it an easy choice to come back to the Alouettes?
It was and it wasn't. I'll start with why it wasn't. I was really enjoying what I was doing. I was working with a hockey club in Europe as well as being full time with the team in Trois-Rivières and working as a governor and at the league level in the CBL with the Alliance. And so those were all really exciting projects that I was able to be a part of. Two of those three, I started from scratch. The basketball team was a project that I'd worked on for a little over 4 years before we finally had our first game, and so 5 years before I left. And it's exciting whenever you get a chance to build something from scratch, build something new. So the Alliance falls under that. The Lions obviously fall under that, and that was the really big project that I've been working on for the last several years. And the team in Switzerland was something that was really exciting as well, because there's a really strong, rich history of hockey over there that we sometimes don't realize over here in Quebec, that we don't have the monopoly on the history of hockey. And I was working with a 100-year-old club over there in Lausanne. So it was difficult from that perspective that I had to let those projects go. But it was also easy because once I had a chance to sit down with Mr. Bilodeau and hear him out as far as why he was doing this, why was he purchasing the Montreal Alouettes, what did he want to do with this club, and what was his vision and his goal. And when we had that conversation, and I realized how authentic his reasons were. He wanted to make the Alouettes proud, and give Montreal a reason to be proud of their Alouettes again. He wanted to, out of civic duty, as he said several times publicly since his purchase, that these are all the right reasons for me. Sometimes people get into sports not necessarily for the right reasons, and I think he knew that this was not going to be a quick fix. That this is not something that we're going to flip on its head and try to make this profitable in a year or two. There's a long road ahead, and he's aware of the time investment as well as financial investments that need to go along with it. So when I heard that, when I had the opportunity to hear him share all that with me, then I couldn't say no, because as much as I love all those other projects that I just mentioned to you and other clubs that I've worked with and the team that I worked in Sweden when I first left the Owls, the Montreal Alouettes obviously have a special place in their heart, in my heart, and there was a little bit of unfinished business, I guess you could say, and so to have the opportunity now to try to do things right and to bring this team back to where it should be, as far as top of the standings, as well as being being the model franchise in this league. And I think there was a time where we were just that, and so I long for the days that we will be that again.
Well, now, what's interesting to me is this is technically your third go around with the Alouettes, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, if you count sort of like when the Baltimore Stallions moved to Montreal to become the Alouettes, I guess this would be the third time you've been with the team.
Yeah, I guess I should clarify that. Yeah, so I did. I worked with the Stallions in Baltimore for 95. I came home at the end of that season, not knowing the team was moving to Montreal. And so there was a couple of months there where I was actually going a different way. And then the team announced they were coming back and I rejoined. So, I never thought of it that way before, Cliffy. But yeah, you're right. I'm at my, this is not my second time around. It's technically, I guess, my third opportunity with this club. You're correct.
All right. So with that in mind, obviously with Danny Machocha as general manager, Mario Cecchini as the interim president, if you will, because he was also on his way up and then brought back in by the league, essentially, when they took over ownership of the franchise. Explain to us a little bit just some of the transition, like how easy or hard was it, seeing as you've already been in that position before, but you're sort of walking back to it. Some people would say it's not like riding a bike, but maybe not necessarily. So can you give us a little insight as to what the transition was like from Mario to yourself?
Well, first of all, Mario was unbelievably helpful. He was able to, as much as he could before leaving, set things up and make things clear and help me. We sat down for several meetings for several hours at a time, just trying to, assimilate all the information and get a sense as to what the franchise had been through the last 3 years, which helped me when I walked through the doors. Because a lot of the staff had changed. I think out of the 30 some odd people that were in the room when I walked in that first day, I recognized 4 of them. I mean, on the business side anyways. And, I recognized a lot of guys on the football side, but, guys like Eric used to be wearing a helmet and shoulder pads. Now he's working in the front office. So it was definitely different. So Mario was very helpful. That's one. And two, this business hasn't changed that much. I'm very familiar with how this team works, having had the opportunity over the last 7 years to work with a lot of different sports teams in this province and abroad. It gave me some great perspective and on new ways of doing things and really just how to. I had several occasions throughout those opportunities to proceed to a restructuring of an organization and reorganizing, sometimes modernizing the way that you run a sports business. And so it gave me a unique perspective coming back in, and I was looking at everything through a bit of a different lens, although recognizing that, I'm still in the same house and it's mostly the same furniture, but things have been moved around a little bit. Right. So I think the best way I could term it is it was just a little weird, to be honest with you, because it was familiar, but it wasn't, because everybody was new. And I had to a lot of the times to just recognize not just the people that were there that were new, that I didn't know yet, but also that they'd been through some very difficult times. And if there's one adjective I could use to describe the staff that are there, which is a huge strength of the staff that we have, is resilient. I figure if they get through the last few years, then there's nothing they can't get through. So it was weird. It was familiar, but it wasn't. And it still required a period of adaptation for myself. It still is. There's still things that we're still, now that the season's over, there's things that we didn't have time to address or didn't want to start changing or tweaking during the season because it's just not time. Like I think I said this to you, Tim, last week. We've been flying an airplane and we're in mid-flight and we need to fix the engine. Well, we can't shut her down. So we tweaked and did as many things as we could during the year to optimize what we're doing. But now that the season's over, we're going to be able to, land the plane, strip her down a little bit and do everything right.
I think I see a comment, and we'll get to what a little bit of what you talked about in the season-ending press conference. But you've always been a guy I've known that you've always had a 1, 2, 3 more year look of what you want your franchise to be. And I'm guessing at this time also, whether we won the Grey Cup this year or not, it's a great year one for you. But I'm sure you do have more years within what what you want to do for the next coming years, obviously.
Yeah, and you know what? It's probably one of the. I guess I shouldn't call it a luxury, but if you look at the recent times in this club's history, it maybe should be called a luxury of having the stability and an ability to look forward more than a year or two. Big things don't get accomplished overnight. And so the ability to have a long-term plan, to identify it and then execute against it over the next few years is a good thing for this franchise, because when you're stringing one year plans together, one after the other, where half your time is more, surrounding survival than it is building for the future. It's hard to have the long-term success that you want to have. And so, there's a lot of projects that we need to embark on in this organization. And some of them are not as exciting as you probably think that sounds. It's transforming departments and improving our ability to harness the data that we have through all of our social media channels and all of our our client database over the years to be able to do a better job of attracting people to the stadium. That's something that building for example, just building our tech stack as far as the tools we have that we need and that we now have or are in the process of putting in place to allow us to be successful as a professional sports franchise in 2023 is something that takes time. And if you're just planning year to year, you're not getting there. You're not getting it done. And so yeah, I do have a very clear vision as to where this franchise needs to be in 5 years and 7 years, and how we drill that down to what do we need to accomplish this year to be able to have that building block to start building on for next year, and so on and so forth. And I'm happy now to have an off season to be able to spend more time on that, because during the season it's been a little bit more difficult to do that.
Yeah, and obviously it helps too, because I know you have the luxury of having Mr. Wettnall as your boss. Before, it's also now having Pierre Carpelito as your boss now, because the money is now currently available for you to do, I guess, what your vision is, or what you want the franchise to become.
Well, yeah, but the thing is available or not available, it has to make sense. You have to build a credible business plan as to why, money that we request that I may suggest to Mr. Pelledo, like I would have back in the day with Bob, it has to be seen as an investment and not an expense, right? So if we, the ask might be quite big on something, but if we can show that we have a sound business plan over, and most big investments will take multi-years to pay back, but you show that you can have an interesting payback and that it will allow us to build our franchise to get to where we need to be, then it will often be looked on favorably. You have other requests that may not be as big in dollars, but if it's just seen as an expense and not an investment, then you don't go very far with that. And I think that's something that, Bob was very good at seeing the future and wanting to have a vision as to what the franchise was to be for many years. And clearly with Mr. Pelledo now, that's the plan. And so now it's our job to, put those pieces together.
Yeah. So I guess we could say. I was just going to say, so fans, you may not see much, but things are happening behind the scenes. As you said, it's just, it's more than just what's happening on the field. So it sounds like everything seems to be in good hands, obviously, with Mark back and what he's able to do. So I can't wait for sure. Cliff?
Well, I appreciate that.
I was going to say, so if we want to get Flight Deck Studios built, we're going to have to talk to Mr. Pelledo and have a sound business plan in place, correct?
You have to have a very sound business plan in place. Absolutely. But I have full confidence in you.
All right. Just need to know where to send the business proposal to. That's all. So that's fair.
The team recently had their year-end state of the team press conference, and just wanted to go over some of the few highlights that you were able to let us know about if the supporters hadn't seen it on TV or hadn't seen it online. Tell us about. I know one of the huge things that you really stressed upon were tickets and the percentages. Tell us about the tickets and the ticket sales for 2023.
Yeah, I mean, that we were late out of the gate, right? First of all, I mean, season tickets took a bit of a dip because there was so much uncertainty around the team last December, January, February, March, until Mr. Pelledo purchased the club and we started rebuilding for this year. But so encouraged by the results that we have. I don't have it in front of me now, but if memory serves me, it was 23 or 24% increase on single game ticket sales. And what I didn't say the other day, and I should have highlighted more during the end of the year press conferences, that was despite having some of the wackiest weather this year ever. We had 2 games delayed by an hour or more because of lightning. And obviously that had an impact on ticket sales because they were forecasting, major rain showers and potential thunder showers all week, those 2 weeks. So obviously that doesn't help your ticket sales. We almost had a game, threatened because of the quality of the air. We had a couple of other games that, although there was no lightning and delays, it was still nasty weather. It was really, really weird because I'd spent, as you guys know, 21, 22 seasons in the CFL prior and never had a home game delayed because of weather. And when I got back this year, we had 2 in the first 3 or 4 games. So it was really kind of wacky. But so that really, to me, just highlights even more the significance and how impressive those numbers are as far as increasing single ticket sales. 52%. Again, 52 or 53. I tend to sometimes round down. It was 52 point something percent increase on group sales, which that, by the way, in large part has to do with not just the excitement around the team, but also just our sales team being able to have some stability and have staff and because when you go through difficult times, staff will leave to go elsewhere. And so if you're trying to do your job and organize group sales and you don't have the horses to do it, you're not going to get the results. And so our sales team did a really, really good job this year. And we were almost tops in the league, despite having, one of the smaller venues and starting from a little further back. Overall revenues were up 16%. So again, having gone down on the season ticket side and then compensating for it and then some to be able to go up, we had, I believe we were second in the league in overall increase when it came to revenues or ticket revenues. And that was really significant for us, especially with such a short runway. Same thing on partnerships. Obviously Mr. Pelodo and his network and the doors that he can help open has a big impact. But an equally big impact is just the stability. Is just, a sponsor doesn't usually, it's very, very rare that you'll ever get a sponsorship that's a 1-year deal. It's always usually a 2 or 3 year deal because that's how long it takes to usually implement your sponsorship plan with us and us with our partner as far as helping them create brand awareness or whether it be driving people to stores or whatever their marketing strategy is. It's not just, okay, you're sponsoring us, we're putting up signs and giving you tickets and then it goes away. It's much, much more complex than that now. And so most of those effective sponsorships are longer term deals. And the reality is that, most companies were reluctant to, sign up to any kind of a sponsorship deal with us because there was uncertainty around the club. Are you going to have a team in June? Those are the questions that people were being asked. So that stability now was huge. We had 40 some new partners just this year, again, with a short runway. Big increases on the sponsorship side as well. Now we still got a long way to go, both on tickets and on sponsorships. And again, this is why I say it's not a 100-yard sprint. This is a long-term plan that we need to do as quickly as possible, of course. So it's a marathon that we're trying to do at a sprinter's pace. But these are all just good signs for us to, and companies see other companies aligning themselves with us. That brings credibility to our organizations as well. So, people attract people, and in this case, sponsors attract sponsors. And so we got a lot of work to do on that end as well. But it's definitely good to see the momentum that we're building going into 2024. And obviously, winning the last game does a lot of good when it comes to creating positive momentum.
I think you said there's been I would consider it a pretty significant uptick when it comes to season ticket holders who have joined for 2024, considering we won the Grey Cup.
Yeah, we already have 700 new season ticket holders for next year, and that number continues to grow, and that's very significant, especially in the short amount of time. That in itself shows the excitement around the product, and I think we managed to connect with fans again, and and the reality is probably over the last 8 to 10 years, when I was with the club and when I wasn't with the club, I would often hear people say like, "Oh, but you guys don't have the big local stars like you used to. You know, you used to have the Mathieu Prou and Etienne Boulet and Bruno Appel and Andre Bolduc and Sylvain Girard and Steve Charbonneau. I can go on and on and on." And they go, "You don't have that now." And it's like, actually, we do. They're just not stars yet. And what I mean by that is, guys like Bruno and Mathieu Prou, they went to multiple Grey Cups. Even if you don't win the Grey Cup, that week at Grey Cup, the media exposure locally and nationally is times 10, times 100, as far as, how the notoriety growth that your brand can have that week as a team and also as a player. And so what I've been saying all these years is like, once this team goes to the Grey Cup again, and then you start seeing all these extra stories about the local guys and the Christian Mats and the Marc-Antoine Dequoy, and as well as the American players that are making Montreal their home, that's what's going to make people realize, how big stars these guys are. And I mean, let's face it, who in Quebec right now doesn't know who Marc-Antoine Dequoy is, right? He was very well known before, but in these last few weeks, the games that he's played, the pick six on the opening drive in Toronto was just like, usually you don't have a turning point of a match in the first offensive drive of one of the teams, and he, that was huge. And he's been making plays all year. And then that just builds and builds and builds. And as we get into the playoffs and you do it again, and then you get the Grey Cup, he played a great game in Grey Cup. He didn't get a pick six, but you don't need to pick six every week to play an unbelievable game, which he did. And, his outcry after the game about how he felt about how we were just like nobody believed in us. And it was sort of an us against the world thing. That was heard, throughout the province. And I think those are the kind of moments. I don't mean just that after the game, but I'm talking about that week and that game. Those are the moments that take those local players and have them grow times 10 in stature. And same thing with like Cody Fajardo. I mean, my goodness. I mean, he's such a likable guy. He's such a good locker room guy. Everybody loves him. You guys know, you see him all the time. I think there's a lot more fans out there that kind of going like, hey, like I bump into friends of mine that are maybe casual football fans are like, hey, that quarterback of yours, Cody, looks like a pretty cool dude. I'm like, yeah, and he's a hell of a quarterback too. So I think that's what's helping us.
Yeah, I think what happened with Marc-Antoine Dequoy, I think that just galvanized this team as far as building that reputation. Like, I guess you use the term "us against the world," so to speak. I mean, I guess you can make the argument for that as well. But I think if people didn't know who he was before Grey Cup, they definitely know who he is afterwards. And I definitely see this team building on that and helping to reinforce it and help educate people as far as what this team is all about. It's not just a bunch of Quebecers playing football. It's truly a Quebec-based football team that's a part of this nation and a part of the conversation now as a result of winning the Grey Cup.
That's right. And you know what? And you're right. Like, this is, first of all, there's 73 or 74 players that made up our roster this year. And add to that, 11 coaches and the front office staff. And, a lot of them are local players, whether they be Anglophone or Francophone, Quebecois players or Canadian players or American players. They all, and credit goes to Jason Moss on this, where they all bought into the uniqueness of being the team that represents this city and this province. And, Jason at the very outset made it, wanted to celebrate what makes us unique, because what makes us unique makes us stand out and makes us stronger and makes us better. And I think he did a great job of that right off the bat and at training camp. You've all heard the stories about he's asked all the players to learn their numbers in French and learn a few sentences or words in French. And this was because he wanted all players to embrace what is unique about this team. There's no other team in the CFL that has that. There's no other team. There's a lot of things that are unique about our franchise and our city, even within our organization and our practice field or whatever. There are things that are unique about us that are maybe not necessarily an advantage if you're going to look at our practice facility compared to Saskatchewan, for example. But we're going to celebrate that it's unique, that it's ours, that it's different, and that's going to make us. By making us unified, that's going to make us stronger, and that's going to make us better. And I think that that's what Jay and the coaches did a phenomenal job of, is the sense of we, and everybody bought into that.
Yeah, I think for us too, you're talking about just those three, Coach Moss, Dequoy, and obviously with Cody. Those are for what we did at Grey Cup. Those are, I think, the three most watched interviews or videos that we had. So it makes a lot of sense, because they want to see what these guys had to say. So I mean, and Coach Moss was doing it every day after practice. So obviously, with the Grey Cup, it is throwing a huge positive. A lot of positives in for what's coming up in 2024. We are at the end of the season. Yes, the Alouettes are still Grey Cup champions, but you have to look forward to what's going to happen in 2024. How far are you along when it comes to what you're going to be offering the fans and what they'll see in stadium coming up this next season?
Well, very far along as far as looking at what we want to do. Having specifics is probably a little too early, because there's going to have to be some choices made. But we do want to look at upgrading some of the amenities in the stadium. We want to, last year we did it kind of with a very short time frame, but we want to be able to build a solid events calendar for the year and our game themes. And I think you guys saw last year that I think we had a lot more game themes. We built around the game themes a lot more to generate excitement and entertainment elements outside of the white lines. And whether it be the opening day concert, or whether it be their Cirque du Soleil, that unfortunately, that was one of the weather days that played havoc on us, but we were still able to pull it off inside the Thompson Hall field house. Building around those things, that programming to me is key going into a year. If your programming is really solid, if you have a Hall of Fame game where you're celebrating players and builders from the past, people get very passionate about that. People love getting to see these guys again. And we're well along as far as how we want to build that schedule for this year. We'd like to do some neat things in the stadium to add to some, game day experiences, and have more amenities at the stadium, working on the tailgate. What can we add? Pre-game show, the beer garden area is something that fans really appreciate. We see that. I think we could do a lot more with it. So we're looking at that as well. So still a little early, because I don't want to, put my foot in my mouth and then suggest we're going to do something and then realize that we won't be able to do it this year, and then manage people's expectations. A good example of that is I think the organization was maybe a little, well, not too quick, but a little optimistic in the timing of being able to get that new video board over here from that we bought from the manufacturer over in Asia. And it was slow to start with, and then there was a hurricane, and then we had this strike in the port in Vancouver, and we had all kinds of reasons for the thing to get here. What was it, about 4 days before our last home game? So the good news is it's here, and we'll definitely be up and running before our first game next year. But I would have liked to have had that up there this season, because that was one of the things that Mr. Pelledo was very excited about, saying, like, okay, we want to send a message. We want to show that we're going to invest and bring, some new amenities to the stadium. And our intention was to be able to show that this year, but we'll get it right in 2024. It's for sure.
So, any chance with all the popularity that's been surrounding her now, any chance at the first concert for next year, if you guys are going to do a concert, can we see Taylor Swift perhaps play at Molson Stadium? She's pretty big into football now, so I think this is strike while the iron's hot, right?
Cliffy? What do you think what would be more likely, us signing her for a halftime show, or signing Travis Kelce to play inside receiver for us? What do you think?
Well, listen, you had Laurent Duvernay-Tardif on the negotiation list. He does know Travis Kelce.
True.
Yeah, to me, I think it would be it's worth a phone call, is it not? I mean, if we want to sell out First Molson Stadium, you want to create the buzz, don't you? Doesn't Mr. Pierre-Carl Peldo want to create that buzz again? I mean, awesome job with Our Lady Peace. There's no question about that. But I mean, now you got to go up higher, right? I mean, you got to take it to the next level.
I think I'm gonna delegate that to you, and I'm gonna give you the authority to negotiate with Travis Kelce and with Taylor Swift. And I'm gonna be very fair with you. I'm only gonna expect one of the two, and hope that you come through.
I'll have my people get in touch with your people.
I got a sneaking suspicion, Cliff, we're going to end up answering this question with a Taylor Swift song with never, ever getting back together. So, yeah. Obviously, for most fans, I think I received the post-season survey. I would suggest that obviously that fans take advantage of it and give your feedback to the team itself. I know there are a couple of milestones coming up in 2024, Mark. I mean, we had the 50th anniversary of the 74 team. I would imagine the team's going to be looking at doing something this year. Obviously, you got the banner raising, obviously, and whatever's going to be associated with that. But any small things that you I know you said you don't want to put your foot in the mouth and then say something that's not going to happen, a la the scoreboard in 2023, but is there anything on your list that you would like to do? Not necessarily that it would be, but I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we'd like to, and by the way, you mentioned some good ones there. Like, next year is the 50th anniversary of the 74 Grey Cup. So I think in some shape or form, the organization is going to dive into that and see how we can celebrate that, and how that will take shape is something that that's the part that's still too early to say. But there's definitely some thought being put into that for sure. The raising the banner, you're absolutely right. I think what I would like to see is the stadium has. It's still a fantastic place to watch a football game. It always will be. I think it just needs a little TLC. I think it just needs a little bit of fresh coat of paint. It needs a few things here and there that I would like to see us do for next season, so that when you walk into that first game next year, that you kind of see like, oh, okay, all right. McGill are very proud of the stadium. We're very proud of the stadium. We worked very hard for many years to get that expansion done and renovation done. And it's been a few years now. So I think just a little TLC is one of the things that I really want us to have a look at. And I want to make sure that we find a way to, work on facilitating the access. And facilitating the access sometimes just means communicating better how to get there, because what's happening is we're in the process of renewing our fan base right now. When we had, whatever it was, 16, 17,000 season tickets, even over 18 at one point, most of the people coming to the games every week were the same people, not exclusively, but the majority. And so once you've been there through 3, 4, 5 times, everybody has their little nook and cranny. They have their little side street where there's a parking spot or somebody's backyard, or you kind of figure out where to go. I'm sure you guys have your routine, you know where to go. And it's not as big a deal as for somebody that's never been there, that maybe is not familiar with that part of downtown, that show up half an hour before the game thinking that they're early, and then they realize they're going to, maybe have to hunt and peck to find parking and stuff like that. And so I think that one thing that we want to do is to do a better job of helping those first-time fans find those nooks and crannies and understand that it actually is not that difficult to get to the stadium, to facilitate their access, help them get there early, and that goes to our programming as well, right? Having those bands playing in the beer garden and pregame. One thing, this is a smaller thing, but this is probably a more direct answer to your question, is like the DJ. Like, I want the DJ to be with the crowd. We did this in hockey and I loved it, where they have a DJ booth where you're with the crowd. You're not up in a booth somewhere and nobody really knows where you are. We actually did this in Laval first, and they do it at the Bell Center now even. I think that brings a nice energy and vibe to the game. So it's really a whole bunch of little things like that, Tim, that I think we need to add for next year.
Any I know we haven't talked about it much, but any of the new perks for season ticket holders that you might find interesting? Because I know one that I found that was interesting, which I think you guys were testing out a little bit last year, was the dedicated line for season ticket holders at each entrance. To me, I love that idea. Any of the ones that you want to highlight?
Yeah, well, again, a little too early for me. We're still post-morteming last season, so it's a little early for me to do anything. We can do this again in the spring, and I probably have a long list of things that I could roll out, and I'd be happy to do. But I can touch on that one because we actually started doing that at the end of this season, right, is having dedicated access for season ticket holders. So it becomes one of those benefits. I mean, becoming a season ticket holder, your primary value is you get your same seat every game. Your secondary value usually ends up being the fact that you save on your purchase, right? You save 25%. So if you buy 10 games, you're actually paying for 7.5 games. And if you paid before Grey Cup, you actually got a 30% discount. So you're buying 7 games, getting 10, which is really one of the big added values of being a season ticket holder as well. But then there's a long list of other advantages that you have as well, including being invited to some exclusive events like the fan day at practice that we had a couple of weeks ago, and getting special access to our locker room sale next weekend, where you'll get in before the crowd because you're a season ticket member, and then getting into the stadium. That's another one. You're right, having a dedicated lane so that if I'm a season ticket holder, I can go through the fast lane. It's kind of like going through the Nexus lane at the airport, where you get a privileged access.
I think also too, you guys are, to me, I've always, as long as I've been a supporter and a season ticket member, I've always tried to, whenever the team was, had available the season ticket bank. And I know a lot of season ticket holders really did not take advantage of it because either they didn't know about it or they didn't know how it worked. I know the team, if I'm not mistaken, the team's slightly modifying it for 2024, but I know we can talk about it more later on in the new year. But, how important is it for season ticket members to take advantage of every single perk that they've been given?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on the person, right? I mean, what is a top perk for one person may be of less consequence to another. So I think that's why we try to identify the things that people are going to enjoy the most. And some people like some things better than others. And I think that's the beauty of what we're trying to put together and what we've put together in the past. I think that the team's done a pretty good job of this over the years, is having some advantages and added value items that help bring value to season ticket members, so that because the one golden rule is the season ticket holder always has to have the best deal. You always have to have the best. There may be some things that we offer to other members as well, like or other clients as well, but it's always going to be the best deal. Always has to be to the season ticket holder.
Yeah.
And also, too, I guess that's kind of straddling that line as well. You're absolutely right. You do have to take care of your season ticket holders because they are your bread and butter. But at the same time, those casual fans whose money is just as important, you want to make sure that they feel included as well, that they feel like they're still going to be a part of the experience as well with Montreal Alouettes.
Well, that's just it, right? That's the challenge, right? I mean, we sometimes will do special promotions or something to attract people to come to the stadium for maybe the first or second time. Because once you come to one game, now our objective is to get you to come back to a second game and a third game, and working you up the ladder, or up the escalator, so to speak, so that once you're at the top step, you're a season ticket holder. Well, sometimes it's just getting people on that first step can be the hardest thing. So we can sometimes be aggressive in some of the offers that we'll make, but we'll always make sure that somehow translates into making sure that the season ticket member has the biggest advantage. Sometimes season ticket members are offered extra tickets for games that be in the season, as you know, or the bank or whatever. Well, a lot of that has to do with being able to say, okay, so if I do a special promo at one point for one game, well, the added value, that client is getting for coming to one game is still less than what we gave to our season ticket members in their overall package. And again, that's why that's all it's very carefully thought through, because at the end of the day, season ticket members, they want a winning team and they want a full stadium because it's a better atmosphere. And so we try to find that good balance so that people understand that what we're doing is we're trying to recruit the next generation of fans. We had a fantastic generation of fans that followed this organization and lived through that dynasty. But over the last 10 years, it's been a little bit tougher because there hasn't been a lot of success on the field. And at the end of the day, what that means is that every year we missed another generation of fans that maybe we didn't, get them hooked on the Owls and getting them come out as quickly. And so the quicker that we now, replenish that base and bring in more young fans, then the better off that we're all going to be. That's something that I noticed a lot in working in Europe, where they have a much more supporter vision of the team, in the sense that we were doing some stuff with season tickets in Linköping in Sweden. And we started offering them their season ticket members certain advantages and a discount if you ordered by this date and all that. It worked great, and I think we increased season ticket base by 15% in that first year, which was great. But what really what I remember the most, and this really resonated with me, is that we probably had about 15 fans that called in and said, "I'm sending you the check for the season ticket amount for the full amount." And we said, "Well, no, if you pay now, you're actually getting this discount, and so you save money if you're sending it now." And they said, "I don't want to save money. I want you guys to raise as much money as possible so you can, sign contracts with the best players possible, so we can get back in the playoffs next year, because we'd missed the playoffs that year." And when the first person called like that, I'm like, wow, that was kind of unique. And then somebody else called and said the same thing. And some people wrote in and they said that sent in the check for the full amount, say, go get this guy next year. They were really looking at it from a pure fan supporter side. And I think it's a little bit more true in Europe, whereas we're a little bit more commercial here in North America. And I think somewhere in the middle there's a really good mix that you hope to reach, where you want your fans to understand why you're doing these extra promos and extra efforts to get people to come out to a game for the first time. Because you know what, and I'm going to speak with a collective we here, like we, the administration, and also the season ticket fan base and our diehard fans want to attract more of us so that we fill up that stadium and can celebrate hopefully many victories together with sold out crowds one day.
I think, by the way, real quick, to me, one good example of what you just mentioned, Mark, is what I did and what many did for the Alouettes during the COVID season. It was, do you want to keep your money within the team? Do you support your team this way? And it wasn't that type of thing, but the amount of people that left their money with the Owls to show that their support for the team, even if there wasn't a 2020 season. I think that's something very similar, but yeah. Right. I mean, it's right. Yeah. Hey, listen, Mark, we appreciate your time. We appreciate knowing you. We appreciate seeing you every week at the stadium. We love talking with you. Hopefully, again, like we have for the past 4 years, hoping we'll continue with this state of the team convo that we have every year on our season finale. But congratulations on that Grey Cup win, my friend. What a way to celebrate your first year back, and obviously we wish you the best for 2024.
Well, thanks, Tim. Thank you both. Appreciate the kind words. I always have a ton of fun chatting with you guys. Love what you guys do with the flight deck, and nobody works harder. So that's very appreciative, because you're helping us spread the word about the Owls and about these fantastic players that we have and coaches that make up a really a really great organization. And when it works out the way it does at the end of this year, I mean, it's even more fun to spread the good word. And hopefully, hopefully I have a pretty good idea. We're going to have some fun news to share with you in the not so distant future. And some of those longer term plans might come to light as well in the next months. So hopefully we can do this again in the spring for sure, and be able to fill in more of the blanks, all the fun stuff we're going to do to make sure that coming to the game next year is going to be even more exciting.
That's
now,
great.
Quick question. Our rings, do we send you the measurements, or do we send those again to Mr. Pelodeau?
Yeah, no, you send them to me. I'll see what I can do. I'll filter those first. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Mark, thank you so much. Like as Tim said, we definitely appreciate being able to chat with you on this, seeing you at the stadium. This whole experience, this whole year is definitely one we will not forget anytime soon. Congratulations once again for everything. And we could not be more excited for the 2024 season. As far as we're concerned, May 2024 cannot come fast enough.
Give me a few weeks and then I'll say I couldn't agree more. I think we're going to enjoy catching our breath a little bit, even though we still got our foot to the floor as far as getting ready for next year. Yeah. So let me take this opportunity to wish you and all the listeners very happy holidays. Thank you again to both of you, but also all your listeners for all of your support, coming out to the games, coming out to the parade, coming out and I'm sure coming out to our locker sale next Sunday. Couldn't do this without you guys, and I also am looking forward to doing this again in the stadium next year.
These interviews never disappoint. I know it's funny, we kind of started it unofficially back in year one with Mark. With I don't know if many people remember that. I know I had forgotten. Such a great memory on you, Capper. But went from there and on to Mario Cecchini, and now continues with Mark. Great insight on the team itself. Great insight on how he became the president. And it was a very interesting story in itself, I will admit, Cliff. But needless to say, from what we found out from Mark, I can't wait for 2024. I know he wasn't able to give us that much information because some of the stuff was still up in the air and they're still trying to cross the T's and dot the I's. But again, I love being able to continue this tradition with us speaking with the Owls presidents.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes, though, because this time last year we had just finished speaking with Mario Cecchini. Basically the same thing, talking about the year that was, and we could not have foreseen what had happened to him and the Alouettes going into 2023, and it's such a crazy twist of fate that we end up doing this year's interview in 2023 with Mark Weightman. Absolutely thrilled to be able to talk to him, though. Again, he's always shown us the love. He gets the podcast. He gets everything about what we're trying to do for Alouettes Nation, and such a treat, such a privilege, really, to be able to talk to him and just get his thoughts on the season that was, and even, as you said, a little peek as to what's to come in 2024. So that's absolutely fantastic. Once again, Mark, we appreciate everything you have done for us this year. We definitely appreciate you spending some time with us to, inform Alouettes Nation of what's going on. And as I said, I'm jacked. I'm excited for this next season to happen. Late May cannot come fast enough as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for sure. As Mark mentioned, by the way, too, do not forget, depending on when you're listening to this, that the annual locker room sale for the Alouettes is going to be happening this Sunday. We'll be starting at 10 a.m. The first 2 hours are going to be reserved specifically for season ticket holders. But then from there, it will be available to all Alouettes fans within the city. So come on out, support the team. I'm sure we'll get some great discounts and hopefully get some great game-worn merchandise too. So can't wait for that, obviously. As we keep referring to it, I said, this is season finale. What a year itself. We felt it was necessary that we have to at least kind of do our own review of the season through our eyes, through supporters' eyes, through the media's eyes, and it's a question of, because we've talked about so many different things, Cliff. Where to start it. You hinted at before. It started off with Mario, the whole ownership issue, and then switches, et cetera, et cetera. Where would you, if you were to start the season review, where would you start it? Would you start it in January of 2023? Where specifically would you start the season, and how would you go from there?
I think you have to start right at the top, which would be January 2023. We came to we had gone through in 2022, being so close to getting to the Grey Cup and thinking to ourselves, okay, what do we have to do to win the Grey Cup in 2023? Mm-hmm. What needs to be done? And we knew that Jason Moss was coming in as head coach. It was probably the worst kept secret, actually, when you think about it, to the point where I even said, once Moss was being shown the door in Saskatchewan, why didn't they just bring him in? Why go through the whole song and dance of interviewing other coaches when we all know it's going to be Jason Moss? But who? I guess at this point, who are we to question anything the team does when it comes to personnel or whatnot? Because they're doing it right. I mean, they clearly did it right. I mean, the result was worth it. It was just the journey, I guess, to get there was a bit baffling at times.
Yeah.
I mean, we find out that Mario Cecchini was not going to have his contract renewed and couldn't figure out why. Then we found out that the ownership group, led by Gary Stern, had decided that maybe they don't want to be football owners anymore and we're looking to get out. And that also, too, was troublesome because that kind of led to a lot of uncertainty as far as what was going to happen. Because there was free agents that needed to be signed that we wanted or that we felt that needed to come back in order for this team to go and compete for the Grey Cup. And nothing doing. I mean, Danny Machoch is sitting there basically with his hands tied, unable to sign anyone of, he could sign players, but he couldn't really offer bonuses. He couldn't spend to the cap. There was just so much uncertainty and everything was kind of shrouded in mystery. And we're just sitting here going, what the hell is going on? Something's rotten in Denmark, as they say. And, we were just wondering what the hell was going on. And
I know. And this was also the time too, by the way, people need to remember that, Jason Moss had already been hired. He was hired in mid-December of 2022,
mm-hmm.
And then we basically went through that period there about a month plus until we found out that, again, you're talking about Gary Stern and then the Spiegel family not wanting to have the team anymore, wanted to get rid of the team. We found out in February. We found out on Valentine's Day that the CFL was taking a happy Valentine's Day, Alouette fans. that the CFL taken over, and what's funny, Mario Cecchini was put in place as our interim president.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. I won't say shown the door necessarily, but there was a parting of the ways. And again, Danny Machocha couldn't do anything because you need a president to sign off on some of these moves, and with no president to sign off on moves, you can't make moves.
Yeah,
and it was just very confusing all this. But then yes, we got the word that yes, the CFL was going to step in and take ownership of the team, reinstate Mario as the interim president until new ownership would be found. So at least the team could start doing free agent things like signing players. Problem was, though, by the time that they got the go-ahead to do so, this was also during the CFL's tampering window being open. And a lot of the players that we expected to come back or were hopeful that would come back ended up, they took a look at the situation that was before them and said, no, this isn't for me. I either need to get paid, I need the security, I need the stability, and that's just not happening in the 514. So out the door they go. And and we're stuck wondering, okay, well, now what? Because I mean, the big names like the Trevor Harrises, Jake Winicke's, the Eugene Lewis's, those were guys that, and again, I don't fault any of them for doing what they felt they had to do in order to make a living and play football. They looked at the situation in Montreal and said, "I'm out skis," and they left, and then became, okay, well, if they're not going to play for us, who is going to play for us?
Yeah.
And that led to a very interesting period with free agency, and we got introduced to the next starting quarterback, which I kind of foretold a little bit back in once they hired Jason Moss. I kind of said jokingly, now watch them sign Cody Fajardo just to prove that they weren't the problem in Saskatchewan. And what happens? The Alouettes signed Cody Fajardo. And it's funny because a lot of people just lambasted the move. They just thought, oh, this is terrible. Like, he's washed, he's finished. This guy's terrible. The story didn't end well in Saskatchewan, and now he's back with Jason Moss, who was also terrible, and all that nonsense. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe they weren't the problem. I mean, yeah, it didn't end well for either one of them in Saskatchewan, and maybe sometimes it could just be something as simple as a change of scenery could make all the difference. And like I said, we didn't know it at the time that, yes, that ended up being the best possible thing to happen for this Alouettes organization. But I remember the move, I'm like kind of laughing a little bit, like, oh, okay, well, hey, let's see how this works. I mean, it's funny because, again, I didn't hate Trevor Harris, but at the same time, I was firmly of the idea that he was not the solution. I mean, call it bitterness from also the subsequent departure of Vernon Adams, call it what you will, but like, okay, well, now we've got Cody Fajardo as the quarterback. We've got Jason Moss as the head coach. Let's see what happens. And quite a bit happened since then, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Cody Fajardo was also on Valentine's Day. That's when he was officially signed for the Alouettes. So that was a hell of a thing. I don't even remember getting a Valentine's Day card. I didn't remember them saying that they would choose me. So
no, not at all. I mean,
no.
I mean, our hearts were not broken, but at the same time, it was just like, we kind of felt like those kids with the empty boxes, like no Valentine's in them at first, because like, hey, nobody's choosing us. What's going on?
But again, then we find out about the new ownership group. I mean, it was about a month later. I mean, for a team to be sold in that period of time, Aycliffe is just. It makes you wonder what happened a couple years prior with the whole Spiegel thing. Because remember, there were some there were some interesting shenanigans that we felt that, and things that didn't just seem right when it came to this Spiegel Stern ownership group, and then how PKP is able to just stand up here and within a month later, he not Quebecor, he buys the team.
That's right.
I mean. And it was announced almost a month later. I mean, March 10th of 2023, it was announced that Pierre Carpelado had purchased the Montreal Alouettes.
Yeah.
So
and there's also a lot of talk with, okay, why is he buying the Alouettes? Is it simply because Quebecor is a major media company and he has designs on going nationwide? Is this sort of a gateway for him to be able to do that? Is this possibility for him to potentially bid on and even secure the French language rights for the Canadian Football League broadcasts, or even the entire thing if it has to be done that way? I mean, there's a lot of questions were raised immediately as to why this billionaire decided to buy the team. But as you said, it's not Quebecor that's buying the Alouettes. It's truly Pierre Carpelado himself. And the guy's a billionaire. He can definitely afford a Canadian Football League team, and he can there's not going to be any money uncertainties when you have a billionaire with a B owning this Canadian Football League franchise. The bills are going to be paid on time. Know that you now have that backing from ownership that I want to win a championship. I want to bring the Grey Cup back to Quebec. I want to bring the Grey Cup to Montreal. So basically giving Danny Machocha the green light to say, okay, you go and you build that team. You go build that Grey Cup winning team. We got the bills. It's all, no worries. The checks are going to clear. That had to be such a relief for Danny Mac, because he went to work right away. I mean, he started bringing in players, and a lot of the moves were like, oh, wow, oh, okay. So, he shored up a lot of the players that were on the team last year. As we said, there was a lot of great players that had to stick around, and he made sure that they did. Brought in some fresh faces, brought in some new talent. I mean, we talked about it numerous times. You can't just easily replace a Eugene Lewis or Jake Winicky, but the talent that was brought in did a very admirable job, I must say. I mean, that's like this time last year, you had no idea who Tyler Snead or Austin Mack were, and they end up becoming household names on this organization. And wow, you're just I'm truly now at the point where if Danny Machocha decides to sign somebody, I'm not going to question it. I think at this point he knows what he's doing. I mean, people were giving him the gears because it seemed like anybody who was born in the province of Quebec and plays football is going to have a shot with the Alouettes, and for the most part they are. But he's cut a lot of Quebecers too, and he's gotten rid of guys that he didn't think were part of the mix that were that right formula for this championship winning team. And you may have questioned some of those moves, but you can't argue with the results. I mean, without question, with the backing of ownership, with a new president, a new old president back in the fold.
Yep.
I mean, Danny Machocha was simply allowed to do what he does best. And clearly it's build championship winning rosters.
I agree. I agree with you, because, and it's it. We were critical of what was done with the signings and stuff like that, but I agree with you. I agree. We really can't. We really can't. We just got to go with Danny Mac. I mean, in Danny Mac, it's in Danny Mac we trust now. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's I said Mark came in late March. Right. We had the cash in order to get these guys, but again, as you said, the roster. I know people have said, well, Tim, maybe that's not really the right question, but going into training camp, it really was like it wasn't necessarily a who's who on the roster. It was like, who on the roster?
Who's that?
Exactly. Because it really was. It was very close to being a very brand new team. I know I was calling them very close to being an expansion club. Yeah. But some of the guys that had been on the roster before, we saw through camp, something about Jason Moss and how and if everybody remembers the original, I guess we could say the hype video that was done in the In the Nest mini documentary. Everybody, I don't want to say bought into it, but everybody believed the whole grade 8 thing. The whole, everybody, nobody, I don't know if anybody, you look at the logo that was made up for the whole season itself. So much symbolism behind it. And that's a deep dive, by the way, that I will need to go into. It's one of my off-season projects that I want to do. But they all believed in what Coach Moss was saying, what he was preaching. And we saw that in camp again. These guys, some of these guys that we'd never heard of before, what they were able to do, bringing in the Austin Mack, what a godsend to be able to bring this guy in. And, but again, also you have these guys, the Tyler Sneeds also, guys that we've never heard of before, just ball out and make the rosters. I mean, it's, you also have, you have the ones like who had been on the roster already and made a small name for themselves. The what Cole Speaker did this past season. These guys just stepped up. So many guys, man.
That was one of the things that made me laugh. You're talking about receivers, and that was one of the big criticisms right away with a lot of the people doing their season previews. Like, who the hell's going to catch? It's great that you've gotten in Cody Fajardo, I guess, but who the hell's he throwing the ball to aside from Tyson Philpott? I'm like, well,
Yeah,
back up
because
to perspective.
Reggie White was on the mend, and he didn't end up playing all year.
Nope. And okay, yeah, you had Keon Julian Grant, who I think a lot of people were sleeping on, but boy, that the first part of the season, he was playing like a man possessed. But you're
Yep.
right. Like going back to, okay, well, yeah, you got Tyson Philpott, you got KJG, and
We had Hergy Mayella also for a short period. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Like right there, that's 3 national receivers who have played in this league and have had varying amounts of success. But then, aside from that, a lot of these players were just simply unknown. Not to say they didn't have talent, but a lot of people didn't know these guys from a hole in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to, as you said, we talked about what we saw in training camp, and like, okay, we got some talent here. Like I said, I've never shied away from the fact that Austin Mack, I knew who he was simply because he played for the San Francisco 49ers. And he had talent there. So I'm like, okay, well, this is one of those guys that I'm keeping an eye on. And sure enough, he brought it every day at camp.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Snead, like, okay, this little guy, what can he do? Oh, holy crap, this guy's
and he's a little dude. He's my size. I'm well under 6 foot, but he just, man.
I've jokingly called him Cahoon 3.0 because just like Ben Cahoon, the legendary Ben Cahoon, I mean, he's short in stature, but boy, does he play with heart. Boy, is he'll get you those dirty yards on second and short, and he'll grind out. Like, you can smack this guy around, and he just gets up and keeps on coming. Like that. I mean, he plays exactly like Ben Cahoon did, and Bo Bowling before him. So that would be Cahoon 2.0.
There you go. So. Okay. Yeah.
Hence why it's 3.0 now for Tyler Snead. And boy, and he got told about it right away. Like, you know, the comparisons right away, and he boned up on his history. He found out all about Ben Cahoon, and you know, he said, if I could play half as good as this guy, I know I'm on the right track. Well, I tell you what, Tyler, you this year you have proven that you are definitely in that conversation. You still got a ways to go to be able to match what Ben Cahoon's been able to do, but what Tyler Snead has done this season, nothing short of spectacular. And as they say, the best is yet to come.
Yeah. Also, people forget too that we didn't lose just our first string quarterback. We also lost our second string quarterback also to free agency. So we basically had Cody, and Cody came in, and we also had Caleb Evans come in. You know, and Davis Alexander's still stalwart at he is learning. Just this dude just learning. He didn't get much playing time this season, but he's taking it all in. You see him on the sidelines watching him during the game. It's just, I can only imagine if this guy's ever given a chance, because we've seen what he can do in camp. You know, what he's done in the preseason games.
Oh my God, yeah. And I said, as far as I was concerned, he should have been the backup. Like, no disrespect to Caleb Evans. I mean, Caleb Evans did a fantastic job this year. He actually played 2 games this year and won them. Mm-hmm. Like, he's undefeated as a starter for the Alouettes. I mean, that's remarkable all by itself. But I mean, we wanted so badly for Davis to get that opportunity, for him to be considered that guy. It didn't work out, but you just know that he's got just that much more experience under his belt. Now he knows what it's like to be on a championship team. I mean, that's going to be driving him. I'm so looking forward to seeing him in training camp this year, if only because he's going to want to prove he's not a third stringer. And I'm sure a lot of people will have that thought of him. And I truly expect him to compete, and not to knock Caleb Evans off or push him aside, but there's got to be a way to make these guys like, okay, if Cody's obviously number 1, how do we can we do it like a 2A, 2B situation when it comes to Caleb Evans and Davis Alexander? You got to find a way to get Davis Alexander on the field as much as possible. I mean, and not just in mop-up duty or something like that. You've got to find a way to get this guy some real reps, because the talent is there. There's no question in my mind that this kid can be a CFL quarterback, and even a starting CFL quarterback. Maybe it's just a matter of getting just a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more under his belt. I have to believe that this Grey Cup run showed him what it was like, what it takes to be a championship quarterback. I have no doubt in my mind that Cody Fajardo has shown him the way, so to speak, and just working alongside of Evans and AC, the quarterback coach. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about great history lessons right there. Like how to be a winner, how to carry yourself as a winner and as a champion. The future is extremely bright at quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes, and I am so stoked to see Davis hopefully get the opportunity to take it to the next level in 2024.
We go through camp. As I said, we had our time there. We obviously so it is going to be our yearly pilgrimage. I think no matter where it is, and if it's in 12 year next year in 2024, which we're expecting it to be, I'm sure you'll be able to see us there.
Without question. And
yeah,
I'm going to say one other thing too. Like this year, we got the opportunity to be at camp. We wanted to take the opportunity to be at camp as much as possible. Obviously, we work regular jobs, so we couldn't be there every single day. But trust you me, folks, like we were able to set things up and do some things this year that we weren't able to do in years previous. And we want to do more. Like we know we can do more, and we have every intention. If camp's going to be in Trois-Rivières, we've already got our headquarters there, which is fantastic, that we're going to take full advantage of. If they decide they're going to set up somewhere else, so be it. We'll be ready for that as well. But I think we've talked about this for years. Like I think training camp is such an important thing for fans to check out, for Alouettes Nation to be a part of, and absolutely, without question, Tim and I will be there as much as we possibly can, and hopefully you folks as well will make the pilgrimage to training camp too.
Exactly, and obviously that's where the whole the whole light bulb idea of Flight Deck Live came about. That's where it debuted, and it just grew from there. And then we got to we did the preseason games, and then I'm trying to remember. God, we've done so many shows this year, Cliff. We get to the cuts. This year's cuts weren't as divisive as they were from 2023, because there were some people that we felt that should have made the team in 2023 and didn't.
2022, you mean?
Sorry, in 2022. 2023 was different. We really didn't feel the same way, because we saw some of these guys, they were carryovers. It makes you wonder. You see how well a guy does in just 1 year, and you're like, okay, you can say to yourself, I was wrong. I was wrong about this guy. He really is making an impact on this team, even if he did stay on the practice roster for most of the year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think cut down day this year was not as a big a deal as it was the year prior. Do you agree?
I would say so. I mean, and it's funny because the cut down day inadvertently ended up leading to one of the biggest stories of the year, with one of the final cuts made from training camp. But when you looked at it initially, you're like, okay, well, again, there's no like what the hell moment when it came when you saw the final cuts. You're like, okay, okay. I figured, okay, he was worthy of a practice roster spot, but we talk about it too. Like sometimes it really just comes down to the numbers game. Like sometimes, the guys who are on the practice roster had just a touch more of that it factor that the team wanted, and it's tough when it comes to cuts, because you see certain players like, they cut him, really, and like or they cut him. Oh, okay, that's it's tough. I mean, this year when I looked at the final cuts, like a lot of them I sort of expected. The one cut that was a little surprising, but maybe not so much at the time, was Reggie Stubblefield.
Yeah. And
like I said, he had a fantastic camp as far as I was concerned. Like he did everything he was supposed to do, and you noticed him. I'm like, oh, so they're not keeping. Like, I figured he was at the very, very least worthy of a practice roster spot.
Actually, it's funny. I think you and I were back and forth, and it kind of leads up to another story too. And I don't mean to cross streams here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you and I were. It was the difference between Reggie Stubblefield and KB Anento, if I remember correctly. I think that's right. What it was.
Yeah, and we remember seeing KBN play. He was another one who played absolutely outstanding during training camp. Preseason games too. He looked solid. I mean, I would say Stubblefield, Ento, and Courtney Davis were three names that were just like the Alouettes have to keep these guys somehow. Like even if it's just on the practice roster, they agreed for the most part. Courtney Davis and KBN Ento did make the practice roster. Stubblefield didn't. So it could have been just as tight, that tightness. You got to 2 out of 3. You got to pick 2 out of 3. And like, oh, I don't want to pick. I want them all. But
yeah,
and unfortunately, Reggie was the odd man out, and I was surprised because like okay, maybe it truly was just the numbers. Maybe that's just how it is. I mean, he's a young man. He'll be fine. He'll hopefully. Stay by the phone, get ready, stay ready. You never know, that call could come. All it takes is 1 or 2 injuries, and then they end up calling you back. That's what happened to Antonio Pipkin. I think it was back in 2018. Had a very solid camp, but ended up being released. A couple injuries happened at quarterback, and Pipkin's back in the fold because he knows the playbook. The coaches know who he is.
Yeah.
A great relationship. It was just a matter of, okay, be ready when your number's called. We say it all the time to these players, and we say it to everybody that's listening, is be ready when your number's called. And that's essentially what ended up happening with Reggie was, a few weeks into the season, a couple of these
just after week 3. I just looked it up.
Yep. A couple of guys go down to injury, end up on the 6-game list, and the team calls you back. And if you're not signed, and that's the other thing too, is these players sometimes will end up on practice rosters for other teams, or sometimes that's too what a lot of players will get picked up is, okay, another team sees them in Alouettes training camp, like, oh, you know what, this guy's pretty good, I think I want him, and then they sign him because if the team can't find a place for him, we'll find a place for him. But as it turns out, nobody had signed Reggie at that point, so they brought him back into the fold, and you kind of got the feeling that the minute he stepped onto the field, he was going to make them regret cutting him, and there was going to be no discussion as far as whether we keep this guy or not, because he was going to play his ass off. Yeah, sure enough.
Yeah, and he had a chance. He had a chance too, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't Winnipeg also in the mix? But he did not sign with Winnipeg when he was cut. Isn't that also interesting?
Yep, he mentioned that as well in our Grey Cup interview that he had an offer from Winnipeg and almost took it, but then Montreal came calling because, as I said, the injuries happened, and I won't say they begged him, but he said he had a lot of love for Coach Thorpe. He had a lot of love for the team, for the city of Montreal, and he's like, okay, I think I want to be a part of this. And could you imagine if Reggie did end up signing with the Blue Bombers? Like, would he have gotten the opportunities that he did? It's hard to say.
And would he be what we do consider here at the flight deck our most outstanding rookie? You know what I mean?
See, there's so many what ifs, but I mean, things worked out the way they did. Reggie came back to Montreal. Sure enough, gets into the lineup, makes an impact almost immediately. Mm-hmm. To the point where you're sitting there like, how could you cut this guy in the first place? What were you thinking? And like we said, training camp, it's so tough. You really only have a finite number of spots. You can't keep everybody, but like you still look at it, and like we said it at the time too. It's like, how could you not find a spot for this guy on the practice roster? But you know what? They say timing is everything, right? And that's exactly what happened. And Reggie, to his credit, ran with the ball, so to speak, and made the most of it. And look what's happened. You're absolutely right. Alouettes nominee for most outstanding rookie, should have gotten CFL most outstanding rookie, but okay, it just wasn't meant to be in that case. But the one award he did win, and that no one will ever take away from him, is the award, the biggest award of Grey Cup champion. His name is going to go on that trophy, and it will be there forever. And that's amazing. And I'm sure if you were to ask him now, I think he's pretty happy with how things turned out in the end.
I think so too. And by the way, in between, before Reggie gets signed, The Alouettes, and it's not. I don't think we had heard about this. I think we maybe heard that they were doing something potentially for RDS, sort of like a not a Last Chance U, but what's the other one they do for the NFL? The little documentary series that the NFL
Hard
does.
Knocks?
Yeah, Hard Knocks. We thought they were doing something similar to that for RDS, but lo and behold, while they're they're in between. I think it's right after was it right after the bye? It was in between bye week. I think it's during their first bye week. I'm sitting on a boat. Cliff's at home, and then they released the In the Nest documentary, and to our surprise, we, meaning Cliff and I, kick off the mini doc.
Absolutely incredible.
And I remember Cliff texting me, because obviously I'm 6 hours behind him. He's like, you need to get on. You need to find a way to get on, to have internet access to see this.
Yeah, because we got a message from one of our great supporters in the group chat. I said, "Hey, congratulations, guys! It's so great to hear your voices on this documentary." I'm like, what? What are you talking? Oh, hold on. So I fire up the YouTubes and I check it out, and my jaw hits the floor as I hear my voice and Tim's voice talking about the Alouettes, and clearly from one of our episodes earlier this year, talking about the possibilities of the season to come and sharing our thoughts as we do. And like, holy geez,
Yeah.
like we're being indirectly featured in this document. So yes, I I text Tim and I say, I don't know where the hell you are in Hawaii. I don't know what you're doing, but you've got to get yourself to somewhere with internet and check out YouTube.
Yeah, because I had been sent a text from Joe Alfieri, the Alouettes media director, social media director, and he says there's a little bit of a surprise in the documentary, because I think they had announced it, but they hadn't no teasers. I was thinking, oh, well, it'll be this or this or that. I was thinking maybe they're going to announce something else, and then lo and behold, the documentary comes out. And now I get it. And I did reach out, by the way, Cliff. I haven't told you this. Did reach out to try to find some of the circumstances behind them choosing our audio. And it was up to the production team. The production team did sound like they scoured different audio from different sources, and they settled on ours. So hearing that, it's a lot even bigger honor to be a part of their preseason mini doc. So,
I'm sure what helped too is the fact that we were at least being objective, whereas a lot of the media, the traditional media that one would normally go to get these sort of sound bites, probably didn't have a whole lot of nice things to say about the Alouettes. In fact, a lot of local media too also suggested that this Alouettes team was going to be I'll clean this up.
Garbage.
Dog poop.
Yeah.
I heard one local reporter, who I'm not going to name for reasons, but he basically surmised that the Alouettes were going to be dog poop in 2023. And, well, I mean, they were not. I mean, they were not perfect. Let's not get it twisted. They were not perfect, but I think it's safe to say to this particular reporter that no, the Alouettes were not going to be dog poop. So
no, and again, that was cool to see. It was an inside look. I don't think it's something that the Alouettes have ever done before. So again, thanks to the production team.
We are definitely humbled and very thankful to have been included and to be a part of this. So once again, I don't know exactly all the reasons why it was prompted, what prompted them to use us, but we are incredibly grateful and thankful.
Hey, and thank goodness we had done a preseason show from camp, because if we hadn't done that show, then yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like,
it's 630 Productions, I think. Is that what their name is? I want to get this right.
I think so, but if need be, we can tag this in in the comments and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We'll make sure they get the love that they so richly deserve.
Yeah. From there, obviously, with that, we're a couple of weeks into the season, and one of the biggest things that we've noticed is that, in year past, the Alouettes have been a very streaky team, whether it be winning streaks or losing streaks, and multiples during the season itself. 2023 just happened to be another one of those type of seasons, Cliff, where yes, the Alouettes went on a couple of different runs, both positive and negative, but also at the same time that the Alouettes are also going through an issue with. I think probably one of the most, probably one of the one season that I remember the most where that the injuries were a major issue on this team. At one point during the season, the Alouettes had 16 people on the 6 game. That's mind blowing. 16 people on the 6-game injured list.
Crazy.
But
which does lead to opportunities.
Yeah.
That's one thing that people have to understand is this is where a lot of these superstars come from, because this is where you see where your training camp depth is and your practice roster depth is, because when someone goes down, it's next man up. And yeah, when you've got 16 players on the list, you're like, holy cow, your limits are truly being tested at that point. And yeah, you see what kind of depth you have on the practice roster, or you start looking elsewhere because you need a helping hand. And if it's not in your ranks, then you've got to start seeing who can you get, who can you bring in to help steady the ship, if you will.
Exactly. And obviously, with one of the things that these big streaks that really defined the season for the Alouettes did happen to start off on Canada Day, where for the very first time in Alouettes history, the Alouettes did host a game on Canada Day, and also at the same time unveiled their very, very popular red third jerseys. It just so happens that they were playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it just so happened to be that it was one of the very first of many weather-delayed games for the Alouettes at home in 2023.
Let's not forget the Alouettes. When you talk about streaks, the Alouettes started a winning streak even in the preseason. For the first time since 2009, the Alouettes are undefeated. Went undefeated in preseason, and we kind of laughed at the time because we said, "Oh, last time they did it was in 2009." Well, that's a good omen, because 2009 the Alouettes went undefeated in the preseason and they won the Grey Cup. Obviously, we know how this season ends with the Alouettes going undefeated. So maybe there truly is something to be said for, like, even though people say preseason doesn't count, and I've always said it's just a chance for evaluation anyway. So I don't care if the team wins or loses, but you win your 2 preseason games, good things have the possibility of happening.
And they did. And it did.
And it started there with they started a regular season winning streak to carry that over. And I think by the time they played that game on Canada Day, I believe they were, I think 3-0 if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4-0, 5-0 if you count the preseason games. But
true,
they were undefeated in May, undefeated in June. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, yes, it's early still, but just right away, it's whatever the Alouettes were doing when it came to Cody Fajardo, Jason Moss, and this quote-unquote band of misfit toys. It was working.
Yep. They were at that point. They were 4-0 before they started. Again, they had 1 winning streak with the 2 wins to start the season, and then they again losing streak, winning streak, losing streak. So that first 3-game losing streak to Winnipeg, BC, which seems to be a natural occurrence because that was our first return to BC since COVID, and then to Toronto, kind of set the narrative later on in the season for the Alouettes and what people thought that they could and could not do just based off of their record.
Yeah, it almost, to a lot of people's eyes, they thought, okay, well, you're good, but you're not good enough. Like, you're good enough to beat the quote-unquote lower level teams, but when it comes to the top tier teams, which essentially were the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Toronto Argonauts, who both were in the Grey Cup the season before, and the BC Lions, who had been simply outstanding with Vernon Adams as their quarterback and just tearing things up. that was basically the tiers right there. Like the first tier was BC, Winnipeg, Toronto. Second tier was everybody else, with the exception, I think, of Ottawa and Edmonton. If you're going to look for a bottom tier, unfortunately, those two teams were it. Montreal essentially was the best of the second tier. Like, you were good, but you're only good against like lower level opponents. Like that was apparently the narrative it seemed to be throughout the year. And when you go 11-7, and essentially the 11 wins are against the teams that you're equal to or less or better than, and your 7 losses come to those 3 teams in that top tier that I was talking about, it's hard to shake that narrative. It's hard to shake the thought that, okay, you're good, but are you good enough? And I've always said you are what your record says you are, and 11-7 is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's definitely positive. It's not after years of even Steven records of 9-9 and 7-7, to go 11-7, to me, I thought was definitely a step in the right direction, and also told me that, okay, things are looking up and there is something here. But you still have that sort of hanging overhead, is that, well, until you beat the BC Lions, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the Toronto Argonauts, you're always going to be looked at as good, but not good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the many challenges that faced this Alouettes team in 2023.
Along with that too is that, with us getting used to Cody Fajardo, and we seen him play in the CFL before, but we were having issues with keeping him upright. And Cody was getting sacked a ton, and we were wondering, was he going to be able to continue and finish the season considering what is happening? But they, along with the many streaks that we had, along with everything else, things did get better. It's funny, Cody goes down. He gets hurt, and it's a non-throwing shoulder thing, where he gets hurt in the game versus Hamilton. He finishes the game in Hamilton. It is a win, but he is out for the next 2 weeks. Now, as we've seen before in the past with the Alouettes, when it comes to starting quarterbacks, whether it been Dominic Davis prior or others, some of these guys may not mesh. And also at the same time, too, with the Cody Fajardo situation, Cliff, we've also been dealing with the ineptitude of the offense. So maybe we were thinking with Cody going down or being out for an X period of week, because at the same time he was never officially on a 6-game or anything like that. He was always a game day decision, if you remember. And if love him or hate the way Coach Moss does things, it's always entertaining. Doesn't really matter, but it really was entertaining. But it also gave the chance for Caleb Evans to start. And Caleb Evans was able to throw a wrinkle into the 2 games that he did start for the Alouettes, including I think one of the games that actually stands out quite a bit for the Alouettes in 2023, and how much grit and fortitude that this team has, was that game on August 19th, where the Alouettes were able to come back and beat the Ottawa Red Blacks on a last-second touchdown, 25-24.
Oh yeah, and it's funny. The week before that was the one time that the Saskatchewan Roughriders were going to face their former coach in Jason Moss, and hopefully the former quarterback in Cody Fajardo. But with the injury to Fajardo, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So it ended up just the narrative was just non-existent. Caleb Evans played a solid game against the Riders, but it was mostly the defense and special teams that just played outstanding football, and basically that helped them beat the Riders quite handily. But then going to Ottawa, into the nation's capital, for Caleb Evans to face his former team that more or less cast him aside, you could tell that he was motivated. It took a little while for it to work. It felt like it's like they knew who Caleb Evans was in Ottawa. Go figure. And that first half of football was very forgettable.
Oh, yeah.
But then something clicked. I don't know what it was during halftime, but something clicked, and Evans and the Alouettes started scoring. They started the comeback. They made the game very, very interesting. And as you said, like, just so close too, because you know, my God, I still get goosebumps thinking about that drive downfield, and for Evans to be the one to score the go-ahead touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic. It's just tough for our nation fans because all they want to do is see a win at home. And well, actually, they did get a win. They did end up getting the win earlier in the year against Edmonton, but to be able to beat the Alouettes, a team they haven't been able to beat at home in a long, long time, and they were so close to getting it done. And then Caleb Evans was just like, nope, not today. And it's kind of funny because that game ended with I think Dustin Crum was Dustin Crum? Yeah, I think it was Dustin Crum that ended up throwing an interception to Reggie Stubblefield. And to me, that was a game where Reggie became a name. Like that's where people was. If you didn't know who Reggie Stubblefield was at that point, now you know because he played. You started to see what this guy could be capable of, and that pick. And I kind of joked with him afterwards, like you should have taken that to the house, man. Like that was the game where you became a superstar, and he laughed about it, like, well, one of these days. And we're still hoping for Reggie to get that pick six, but for him to get that game clinching interception was just chef's kiss. Yeah, absolutely outstanding.
So Cody comes back, and this team we seem to fall back into our old ways. Cody does not get a win in the first 4 games that he returns after his injury. And at that point, the Alouettes were 6-7. But within that period, the Alouettes probably acquired 2 guys that really helped drive this team through the end of the season and into the playoffs, because these 2 guys made a hell of an impact. 2 guys that we didn't expect to be available, but Danny Mac was able to work his magic and bring in these 2 defensive studs that were able to help the Owls throughout the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. For the life of me, I cannot understand why Sean Lemon started this 2023 season at home, watching football on the couch. I'm obviously staying ready in case the phone rang, but for a CFL West All-Star with Calgary the year before, and being invited to and cut from BC Lions training camp in 2023, the idea that this guy was sitting at home waiting for an opportunity blows my mind. As the weeks passed, and still nothing. And even this Alouettes team, like the defensive line, like they were good, but not good enough when it came to the pass rush. They were not putting pressure on the opposing quarterback as much as
mid. They were mid.
They were very mid. Let's call it what it is. They were very mid. And as luck would have it, Danny Mac, as you said, finally picked up the phone, called Sean Lemon, brought him in. That meant Nick Usher, who was a very popular player here in Montreal, ended up being the odd man out because you bring in a defensive lineman, invariably you got to let a defensive lineman go. And unfortunately, Usher was shown the door, unfortunately. But then Sean Lemon comes in, starts making an impact almost immediately.
Yeah.
To the point where you're just dumbfounded. Like, and every other team had to been dumbfounded too. It's like, why didn't we get this guy? Why didn't we bring him in? And then people are like, why didn't the Alouettes bring him in sooner? But, once again, timing truly is everything. And Sean Lemon comes in, makes an impact right away, and the rest, as they say, is history. But you said it. Machocho was not done yet. I mean, like he saw what was being done with his defense. He knew that he had some studs here playing outstanding football, but you need more. And fresh off of an XFL championship victory, Darnell Sankey wanted to come back to the Canadian Football League. Obviously wanted to go to someone who was going to contend. And at the time that he was signed, you can make the argument maybe the Alouettes were not quite in contendership, but something had to give, and Darnell Sankey ends up signing on the dotted line. comes in. I believe it was his first game was against.
Would have been Toronto.
It was Toronto, and sorry that the back-to-back games, like for the second of they played 3 times this year. The second game was an absolute blowout at BMO Field, where the Alouettes just got embarrassed, and a lot of people were thinking, okay, well, they're just concentrating on the next game, which was also against Toronto, but at Percival Molson Stadium. That one was a lot more tightly contested affair, which again the Alouettes lost, but Darnell Sankey had said after that, doesn't matter. We're going to win the next 5 games, and then we're going to go to and win the Grey Cup. A lot of people laughed. A lot of people like, that's cute. Sure. Okay. Yeah, if you say so. Okay. Show me. Well, wouldn't you know it, folks?
And I don't think it was used as bulletin board material either, because at the time, the Owls were on that 4-game losing streak. Or 3 at the time. 4-game losing. And it's like, it's very rare for something like that to be considered. I would consider it, people thinking it was a throwaway comment. No, sir. No, sir.
No, I think a lot of people looked at it as, okay, well, sure, of course you're going to say that. Like, like whatever it takes to try and motivate the troops, whatever, any number of things you could have said. And at that point, like I said, you are what your record says you are. And at that point, the Alouettes were, in my opinion, good, but not good enough. They were mid. Mm-hmm. Something had to change. And yes, we knew the talent was there. Defensively, this team was definitely clicking on all cylinders. Offense really needed to get their ass in gear. Special teams, also good, but still needed that extra boost. But when Sankey stood up and he said, we're going to win the next 5 games, and then we're going to win the Grey Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, if Darnell Sankey says something, you can take it to the bank, because Nostradamus called it. Because sure enough, that's exactly to the T what happened. The Alouettes won their next 5 regular season games, finished the year at 11-7, went to the Eastern semifinal, won that, went to the Eastern final, won that, and won the Grey Cup.
Yeah. And everything happened within that next winning streak, dude. From the major comeback in Edmonton, being down 21-3. I think it was 21-3 at one point, and just storming back. The total shellacking of Ottawa on Thanksgiving Day, in the rain, by the way. There's another one.
Go figure.
But then, as he said, we look at what was done, the way that the narrative was heading into the East Final. We talked about it before. How it was like, they can't beat anybody. But then again, I think you and I said this a couple of times. You got to remember, this is the postseason where anything can happen. Anything can happen. Throw everything out that happened during the regular season. Yes, it can be used for talking heads.
No, that's true. And it's funny, even the Eastern semifinal, still the Alouettes, even though they had beaten Hamilton to finish the regular season, they were undefeated against Hamilton all year. That's a remarkable thing. They did not lose once to Hamilton, to the point where I said, okay, well, this Alouettes team is 2-0 at Tim Hortons Field and has a chance to go 3-0 at Tim Hortons Field, but they got some work to do first. And part of that was beating Hamilton in that regular season game, which was essentially a glorified preseason game, because you knew these two teams were going to meet each other 1 week later at Percival Molson Stadium, but for the Eastern semifinal. And that Eastern semifinal game was the start, I would say the start of making that statement that we are good enough. We are the team to watch. This is the hottest team of the Canadian Football League, and we're going to show you. And that Eastern semifinal game was just so much fun to watch. I mean,
I know.
All the way through, and just like Hamilton, let's not forget, hosting the Grey Cup this year, they pushed all their chips to the table. They went out, they got Bo Levi Mitchell. He was going to take them to the promised land. They brought Jeff Reinbold back as special teams coordinator. Scott Milanovic ended up joining the team as offensive coordinator. I mean, they were doing a lot of the right things. They were making a lot of moves in order to be contenders. They really wanted to be going to and hosting the Grey Cup. Problem is, they just ran into the buzzsaw that was the Montreal Alouettes, and
Yeah.
uh,
And you know, it's funny. It was such a meaningless game, and it all we can say the whole Ticats thing started in Montreal with an infamous onside punt, even though it had been done earlier in the year. Such a meaningless game, for that to be pulled out in a meaningless game. I mean, it's just part of the whole story. It's just part of the whole story.
It's like this year really showed what this Alouettes team was capable of doing, and just turning everybody on their ears. I mean, you start with like the onside punt, for example. It started in Ottawa with Joshua Antwi, and we were there live, and we were like, "What the hell? What? Wait, what?" Like, just to see him pull that off, like
the successful one. Because remember, people forget we tried it in BC and it failed miserably.
Yeah, Antwi tried it in BC, couldn't get it off, like to the point where we thought, "Oh shoot, his Xbox controller."
We thought he fumbled. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. So,
yeah, like something didn't work. Like there's a glitch in the Matrix, but
there was a glitch, all right. I mean, for them to be able to pull out a rule enough times in 2023 that people are just complaining, you got to get rid of the rule. It's like it's a part of the game. That's what makes football. You got to be ready for everything. Everything.
And you know what? You don't like that rule. If there's a simple solution. If you don't want an onside punt to happen, and I'm going to get close to my microphone and say this: defend better.
Yeah.
You know what? Learn the rules.
And if it's
defend better,
and if it's second and long, it puts doubt. It makes them think, what are the Alouettes going to do? What were they going to do?
And then when Cole Speaker pulled it off during that last regular season game, we kind of looked at each other like, are you effing kidding me? Did they just pull off another holy cow? We're howling with laughter. Like, holy jeez, I can't believe they had the cojones to pull that off not once, but twice.
And again, in a meaningless game, so it put, again, like I said, it put the thought on the other side of the ball. What are the Owls going to do? And then, as you say, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, we talked with Coach Moss, I think both times after the game in Ottawa, we talked to him about it. Because he had said he wanted to pull that off for years with Cody in Saskatchewan. There was never the right opportunity to make that happen. And lo and behold, it happened in Ottawa this year. And then when we saw him again, post game versus Hamilton, I said, where do you come up with this stuff? Like, how? Like, it's just like I said, we're just mind blown that you were able to pull it off not once but twice. And to the point where I even said to Coach Moss, I'm like, if you make it to the Grey Cup and we don't see an onside punt, we're going to be very disappointed. We won't be mad, but we'll be very disappointed. And boy, hearing him laugh is just fantastic. Like, just if you can crack a head coach like that, that's pretty good. I'm very happy about that.
And then obviously, as we're talking about with the Eastern Final, the East Final, everything started off with the Dequoy pick six. And from there, it was game.
Before we get too far into that, let's not forget. A lot of people say, "Okay, great, you beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats," and so many obviously things were not what we expected out of them. But going to Toronto, BMO Field, where you almost never win, you've won once in the past 6-7 years.
10.5 point underdog.
To a 16-2 team, Chad Kelly playing arguably the best football of his career, and obviously good enough for him to win MOP for the Canadian Football League. I mean, the DAC was so incredibly stacked against the Alouettes. Like, I'll go so far as to say almost nobody believed that this team could shock the world and beat the Argos. Like it was almost like, okay, it's great that you made it this far, but this is where the clock strikes midnight and Cinderella turns back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, but do you know who believed though, Cliff? The 1%.
The 1%.
The 1% that Coach Moss had been preaching all year long. The Great Eight. The province of Quebec. The people of Montreal. The province. The team.
Alouettes Nation.
Alouettes Nation. Nobody believed but the 1%.
Yeah.
And
as you were about to say, with the very first series of that Eastern Final, Chad Kelly and company does what they do best. They march down the field. They looked like a 16-2 football team is supposed to look, playing against a team that was not lucky. I will never say the Alouettes were lucky. They had to scrap and fight their way to get to where they did, and they were not just happy to be there. They were playing to win, but that first series, I mean,
and wearing red on the road.
That too. That
breaking out their alternate uniforms on the road.
Yeah, which makes for such an incredible scene because you got like the double blue of the Argos versus the Alouettes red. I mean, it was wild. Like a color on color matchup in the playoffs is spectacular. But sure enough, the Alouettes marched down the field, or the Argos, I should say, marched down the field, and like, okay, this was to be expected. Here we go. And then lo and behold, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, the Eastern nominee for most outstanding Canadian.
Yeah, Dequoy reared his head again.
Pick six, and everybody in that stadium was just jaws on the floor. Like, did that just happen? And even we're looking at each other like, oh, okay,
game on.
Okay, this
game on.
We got something here. Oh, let's see what happens. And then, yeah, that the rest of that first half was middling football at best for both teams. Like it was almost like a real feeling out process. Like some would say,
there were shades of the game in Ottawa,
like
that first game in Ottawa.
Like some would say a tight defensive battle. Others would say boring. I mean, if you want touchdowns, then yeah. But that second half comes along for the Eastern Final, and Montreal just
took advantage. They took advantage of the things they didn't take advantage of in the first half.
Yeah, the defense came alive. They made Chad Kelly's day a night, like it was a living nightmare for Chad Kelly. He just
and the O-line stepped up in that second half. From 5 sacks given up in the first to only 2 in the second.
Yeah, and
that set the tone for the rest of the playoffs.
Make no mistake, folks. Getting sacked 7 times is not something to be proud of or hang your hat on. But I mean, this offensive line, as you said, kicked into gear, gave Cody the time and space to be able to do things, and just kept this going. But this defense really showed what they were capable of. What gets me more than anything else with that Eastern, when I think about the Eastern Final, among other things, besides the Dequoy pick 6, KB and Ento.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
Like when you talk about the story within the story, when it comes to the Argos and the Alouettes, I think about KB and Ento. The pick 6 that he got in the Eastern Final was such a full circle moment for him. When we think back to that very first game, or no, sorry, it was the second. No, yeah, it was the first game that the Argos and the Alouettes played at Percival Molson Stadium. It was a shootout.
Barn burner. Yeah.
Such a fun game. The Argos just squeaked ahead. But the one thing that unfortunately we especially remember was Fabian was just burnt. Constantly getting burned for touchdowns.
4 times. Especially and on the winning touchdown.
Yep. That's just how it is. Like, to the point, like we saw what he did in training camp, and we thought, oh, this is the guy. This is a guy that's going to do some outstanding things this year. And we started to doubt because he was just looking so out of place. Like he did not look like he belonged on the field, to the point where it's like, why are we keeping this guy around? Like, I don't think he gets it. Like we thought maybe he had something, but he's clearly not getting it. And then he goes home after that pitiful game. He goes home on the bye week, comes back against Calgary, has a monster game, and we're like, is this the same KB and Ento? What the hell happened during that bye week? Like that to us was like the running story for us. Like the what happened? Like what happened during that bye week that just flipped the switch for KBN. Incredible. He came back a completely different player, and it was improving by leaps and bounds. Like he was not perfect, but my God, he was out there. He was doing things. He was truly becoming a force. And when we talked to Coach Thorpe, I was like, what did you say to this guy? What happened? And one of the things he talked about was the fact that he was playing on the boundary corner and they moved him to the field side. And at the time, like, oh, okay. Like, it seems kind of hard to believe that switching from one part of the field to the other could make such a difference, but clearly it did, because he was playing lights out football at that point.
Yeah.
And then all the way up to that Eastern final, like he had been playing outstanding football for the Alouettes, just making big plays happen and just being a real force. But that pick six, and I laughed. I'm like, holy cow. Kavian Ento pick six in the Eastern final against these Argos that ate his lunch earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the stuff, like when you talk about when Disney's going to make the Hollywood movie of this season, like it's remarkable to think about. I laughed. I mean, that's all I can do is just laugh and think about the fact that KB Nento, I jokingly said the boy nobody loved, but we loved him. I mean, he really is a good dude. As much as hard as we were on him, we definitely wanted him to succeed because we saw the talent was there. And then what happens? Pick six against the very same Argos that kicked his ass earlier this year. You talk about full circle moments, and we talked about this earlier too. It truly was a full circle moment for KB Nento. And simply put, what next? What else could KBN do? Like, how's he going to top that? Have that game. How's he going to top that? Well, folks. But wait, there's more.
What a way to bookend this story this year, to get not only one but two major plays in the Grey Cup. One knocking down a ball in the end zone, and then the interception, which helped the Owls, down the line and stop the Bombers and allow them to win the Grey Cup.
Yeah, and when I think about this Grey Cup, and I think about this journey that the Alouettes went on, it's remarkable. There's simply no other word I can use other than remarkable. Like what this team had gone through, what we had seen in the week leading up to the Grey Cup, like everything, like from spending time with the team during practices, during media day, being able to talk to them, and fans of other teams basically putting their support behind the Alouettes versus the Winnipeg Blue. I think the only people that wanted the Blue Bombers to win the Grey Cup were people from Manitoba. It felt like everybody else in the Canadian Football League wanted the Alouettes to win. Even Rider fans, who the same Rider fans that were mocking Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo, basically kicking their ass out the door, this time, like to end the season last year. Yeah. All of a sudden it became, well, no, we realized that they weren't the problem because, Saskatchewan ultimately had the same year that they had in 2023. They had the same season they had last year, the year before. So I guess they finally came to realize maybe Jason Moss wasn't the problem. Maybe Cody Fajardo wasn't the problem in Saskatchewan. No, not when Saskatchewan ends the season the exact same way in 2023 that they did in 2022 with 7 straight losses. Exactly. Like you can't pin that. In 2023, you certainly can't pin that on Jason Moss or Cody Fajardo. Yeah. But yeah, it was just so funny to see Rider fans, the same Rider fans that sat through 2009, 2010, losing those back-to-back Grey Cup championships to the Alouettes, throwing their support behind Alouettes Nation, saying, go win the Grey Cup. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that playing Winnipeg, their hated rival, probably had a lot to do with it. Like, once again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I guess that's how it is. Whatever the case may be. And it was just incredible. I mean, so much love and support from CFL fans, with the exception of Bomber fans, understandably. But the fact that everybody now was on board with the Alouettes, everybody wanted to see this team succeed in the worst way. Yeah, and they did. It basically started with the late in the fourth quarter with the Cody run on the 2nd and 18, I think it was able to set up the that third down pass.
Yeah,
Against cover zero, mind you, but still, I mean, to have the chutzpah, the cojones, if you will, to make that throw, and Cole Speaker making the catch of his life in
yeah,
that moment. But for Ace, our offensive coordinator, Anthony Calvillo, the great Anthony Calvillo, to dial up that play. Like we talked about his coaching style, and I had jokingly said AC probably stands for always conservative, because that really was how it came across. But this Grey Cup game, he clearly watched the tape. He clearly saw a lot of the chinks in the armor, if you will, for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and he was able to capitalize. And he called an absolutely fantastic game. Cody Fajardo, I said, had to play the game of his life, and he did. He
did.
manned up. He stepped up, and he showed that he is who he says he is. And
Yeah.
my God, like just everything that led up to that moment, that drive, that game-winning drive was something that will be burned in my memory for possibly the rest of my life, because that was just outstanding. Like you even asked, like, where does this win rank versus the 13th man in 2009? And I'm still gonna say it's still very early to say, but I mean, I truly do believe this Grey Cup game is going to go down as a top 5 game, like one of the greatest games ever played. And what a ride!
This will be one of the greatest Grey Cup games, ever played. It will be right up there in the annals, I think, when people will remember the Ice Bowl. This will be, I guess, this is our The Drive type of thing too. So it's, and then again, the touchdown pass, perfect pass to most outstanding Canadian Tyson Philpott. Clock strikes 0, confetti everywhere. Alouettes are Grey Cup champions for the first time in 13 years. I remember us in stadium, you, me, and Manon, just embracing, not only after the touchdown, but after we had clinched the Grey Cup. I mean, you've seen my first time seeing the Alouettes win a Grey Cup in person.
My second, but I mean,
it's just a feeling. And then the being on the field post game, seeing everybody coming, the little things of just coming away with confetti. It's the small things, the embracing of everybody, the players, being able to get access to the locker room afterwards. You guys going going to the post game party. The parade, this being our last show, it's just, of the year. We don't want 2023 to end, but we do know. It's funny, once the schedule does come out, and it's it is scheduled to come out the day that this really show does come out. We don't. Yes, we understand we got to move on, but 2023 will be a season that the city, the team, the history of the Alouettes, pro football in Montreal, us, it will be etched in our minds forever. Forever.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about when the clocks hit 0 and it was made official that the Alouettes were the 110th Grey Cup champions, I think about all the ghosts all the stuff that had gone on in the 13 years from that Grey Cup win. I'll even go so far as to say, like, things were not bad. It wasn't until Mark Trestman, coach of the Alouettes, left for the NFL in 2012. We didn't realize it at the time, but that was kind of the downward spiral. That's when things started to slowly descend down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Mark leaving, AC's concussion, him retiring.
And then we end up with questionable head coaches. Certain moves were made. Certain people were let go. Others were brought in. There's so many missteps that this organization made, and we tried to see the positive in all of it, and it was tough. And this team really didn't do itself any favors with a lot of the moves that were made, a lot of the decisions that were made as well. Safe to say, Alouettes Nation, from I'll say 2013 to this year, they have definitely seen some shit. There's just no other way to put it. But I think to myself, all the crazy things that this team had gone through, all the, as I said, questionable moves that were made, the God, I mean, like, we could probably do a whole show talking about all the crazy stuff that happened from 2013 to this year.
Yeah.
And we're probably going, what the hell? Like, but
I mean, this is everything.
We walked through hell and back to get to this point.
And every fan base does that too. But the thing is, this is something that had to be, the franchise needed to rebound. And people need to remember too, I know Brian Noah brought this up too. This is coming from our head coach, who was traded to Montreal in 2007 for a gentleman who did not want to be here. We still want to know this story. We still have to ask Coach Moss about this story and what was his decision, how it was portrayed in the media that he didn't want to be in Montreal, potentially was going to balk the trade that brought him here.
And we will talk to him. We
and
will have Coach
just
Moss
the whole circle of him coming here and winning the Grey Cup the first year. Owner winning the Grey Cup the first year that that PKP owns the team. Coach Moss becoming only the third head coach in Alouettes history, first year head coach to win the Grey Cup in their first year as an Alouettes head coach.
And to me, I also think about Coach Moss with this year. He truly did become a leader of men. Like he's been a head coach before in Edmonton, and a lot of people, when the Alouettes had announced that he was going to be the head coach, the first thought they went to was his temper tantrums, his throwing of equipment, the throwing of Gatorade jugs, and curse words every other, like just a lot of anger from Coach Moss back then. And I guess you look back now, I'm sure he would probably tell you those are growing pains. This is it was part of the process of becoming the man that he is today. But when I think back, like for example, the Eastern semifinal, when the Chris Edwards incident happened and all hell broke loose, and I'm sure the old Jason Moss would have been right in there throwing hands and or equipment or doing something. But I just remember the calm that came over him, and you could tell he was angry. He was upset at what had gone down. He was clearly not pleased that a couple of his players, came off the bench to join in that melee. But he remained calm. Things got settled. I mean, he let the referees know what was going on, and he was not pleased with a lot of things that had gone down. But to see his calm demeanor, the way that he handled himself, the way he handled his players, his coaching staff, everything, to see that you saw that this is the guy that you want leading your team. This is the guy that is going to take the team to the promised land. And I can't say enough good things about Jason Moch as head coach this year. I mean, he has proven himself. And again, I when I look back, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking with him in 2024 here on the podcast. I mean, I can't wait to hear how he looks back at this year and the evolution that he's gone through from that time in Edmonton to his time in Saskatchewan to here now in Montreal. I'm really, really excited to talk to him and to get his side of things, because it's been such a story. I keep talking about there are so many stories within the story, and the story of Jason Moss as head coach, like you said, from him coming here as a player, backing up AC, to now having AC work under him on this coaching staff.
Yeah.
So many wow moments when you think about it, and it's truly, truly remarkable.
Yeah. Don't forget the season, Alouettes Nation. Do not forget about this season.
No, and let's quickly talk about you and I this season. We've accomplished some pretty amazing things when you think about it. We've had Kevin Glenn on this show this year. Mm-hmm. We've had the great SJ Green on this show this year for our 200th episode, no less.
Yep.
We crossed that benchmark this year. Flight Deck Live, which we kind of started as a lark, pun fully intended, turning out to be an absolute blast to do. Like we found our, it took a little while to find our way, I think, but
Starting on Instagram, moving over to StreamYards, even with all those shows that we did more than once.
For example,
Growing pains.
Yeah, the fact that we've been able to do Flight Deck Live from Edmonton, from Ottawa, from Toronto, from Hamilton, obviously. The fact that we've been able to take this show on the road is remarkable and such a treat. I think we've learned a lot about ourselves as well. What we're, the lengths we're willing to go to make this an entertaining show, and the fact that I still feel we've only scratched the surface of what we're capable of doing. We've had some great guests on this year, and I have to thank each and every one of them that have come on and helped contribute and help make the show as successful as what it is. All the way up to during Grey Cup week, people coming up to us and saying, "Hey, love what you guys are doing. You keep up the good work." I mean, when you've got our contemporaries in the media coming up and saying, "Good job, keep up the good work. We're loving what you guys are doing," that to me that means a lot. I don't know how you feel about it, but to me, it
does
really,
because it's not just platitudes. It's not just platitudes. It's based off of it's based off of what we've done.
Yeah, they're not blowing smoke, as they say. And we hear it and we appreciate it. And as I said, we've come a long way, but I still feel we have so much to go. We still got much more stuff to learn, and we want to. We want to keep growing the show. We want to keep improving, and we really want this to be the place where people come and get their Alouettes news and analysis and opinions. And we want to be able to bring everything Alouettes to each and every one of you. Like, I think we've done a great job this year. I know we can do more, and I want to keep doing more. And I'm so excited for what 2024 has to offer. I know there's still a lot of people we want to bring on the show. A lot of alumni that we still have to talk to. There's still other players that we want to bring on, especially now that we'd be bringing them on as Grey Cup champions. I mean, that to me, that's going to be so exciting to be able to talk to someone that we've known, that we watched them go through this incredible season, and to be able to say that, yes, you truly are a Grey Cup champion, and no one's ever going to take that away from you.
Yeah, show us your ring. Let me see it.
Well, that's the other thing we have. So, of all the things to look forward to in 2024, the Grey Cup ring. That's going to be blinged out, something serious. I mean, that is going to be a thing of beauty, and I can't wait. I can't wait. Like, I know the home opener. I don't know who they're playing. It's going to be in June. I'm fairly confident of that. It's going to be in June. But when they unfurl that 8th banner, to me, it's all going to come flooding back. Like, this year is all going to come flooding back to me. I can just tell. And it's going to be amazing. It is going to be something that, once again, is going to be burned in my mind. Because we look at the 7 banners that were there, and they've been there for a while. And a great reminder of history. But knowing that now they're going to have to add an 8th. And I cannot wait to see that 2023 championship banner.
Yeah.
And I
agree.
It's going to be amazing. And
it's
folks, if you haven't already, and you heard Mark Weightman talk about it. Yes, just throughout the parade week alone, the Alouettes gained 700 plus season ticket holders. Football's been back for a while, but I think the love for Alouettes football truly is back. Everybody loves a winner, of course, but I think people realize just how amazing this football team truly is, and they want to be back on board. They want to be there. They want to be there to see it all, and I think they're going to truly enjoy that banner unfurling as well. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you're on board in 2024 with this Montreal Alouettes team, because they're for real and they're spectacular.
Yeah. Again, Alouettes Nation, what a season. What a season for us here at the Flight Deck. We want to thank every single one of you for who have spent even just a couple of minutes listening to the show, catching up us, seeing what we do on social media, etc.
Watching us on Flight Deck Live as well.
Yep. We want to, from Cliff and myself, we want to wish every single one of you a very happy holidays. Happy Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We want you to stay safe. We will be seeing you within the new year, that's for sure. Just stay tuned to all of our socials. But we appreciate every single one of you for everything that you've given to us here in 2023, and we're hoping to give it back to you in spades in 2024.
Without question. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be a fantastic year. It's going to be a championship year like no other. My God, I'm truly excited. I'm truly excited to see what we're going to do as a podcast, how we're going to grow and evolve and get ready for that 2024 season to get underway. Folks, we say this all the time. Make sure you're subscribed to us. Make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're aware of what's going to be going on. We're going to let each and every one of you know. Make sure you hit the notification, like, subscribe, however you consume this podcast. Make sure you're on board with us because we want you along for the ride. We want to keep sharing all of this with you. So if you haven't already, make sure you're tuned into us. Tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell a family member, tell everybody you know about the Alouettes Flight Deck because we want you here. We want you to be a part of this. Without question, we want you to be a part of Alouettes Nation as well. So if you're not already, get subscribed.
That's right. And I appreciate you, buddy. You know that for the past 8 years, I appreciate you every day. We're heading into season 9, broadcast season 9. And again, like Cliff said, we got a lot to do and a lot to bring to you guys. So for the final time in 2023, end of our 8th broadcast season, for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on final approach.